Chapter 41. Practical Problems. 1. How much should these seed potatoes weigh? 30 to 40 grams. Grams? What's that? I don't know either. I heard 30 grams is about 1 ounce. I don't understand why they don't use convenient ounces and drams instead of these strange units. Watch your mouth. If you're not careful, you might get kicked out without even getting a single potato. I heard they're only using grams for weight from now on. What's that all aboo? I think I just heard talk about drams and ounces. Nemo? No, that's not what If that's not the case, then it's fine. Ugh, what's this? I definitely smelled the evil hexadecimal unit system somewhere. Must have been my imagination. Anyway, that's not what's important right now. Let's look at the current important situation of our community. Cut the potato pieces this size and plant them in the ground. Dig only this deep to plant them. Everyone, make sure to plant them with proper spacing. These are crops that Nemo himself directly distributed to you. The settlement of new residents was somehow progressing. They arrived around April, which was a bit late, but everyone hastily joined the farming lineup, cultivating their gardens and securing their own food supplies. Nemo. Sisi, can I skip tomorrow's lesson? I only slept for 4 hours yesterday. Nemo. Please just help with this potato field. Nemo. Everyone seems to be living well. Or not. At this point, the 100 or so English people on Roanoke Island were having a miserable time. They were all dragged to Chesapeake Bay for the crime of settling in America a few years earlier and the crime of having already tried growing potatoes and other crops. Huff, hoof. This small amount, only a few grams, but this size is appropriate for seed potatoes. But what is a gram? Just memorize it without question. I've already explained it 8 times, and if you ask one more time, I'll chop your head off with this sickle. They're not getting proper sleep and playing the unexpected role of farming teachers. But it can't be helped. There's hardly anyone else who's successfully grown potatoes. And you all are, actually quite blessed. Just look at Manteo and his tribe members over there. Hey, you idiots! Do it properly. Why are you cursing? What if you eat that? Do you want to starve to death in winter? Was I not supposed to eat it? You're not supposed to eat this. Oh, really? That's the seed? That thing. This is driving me crazy. Currently, the native population in the Chesapeake colony is over 6,000. Manteo's tribe members number about 200. The number of adults who can work is even fewer. While each English person from the Roanoke colony is teaching 6 or 7 people, Manteo's tribe members have more than 50 people each clinging to them, asking various questions. Moreover, the tribe members are teaching other natives. What does that mean? What? Not hunting and eating animals, but using them as farming tools? Digging soil before sowing seeds? Yes, it means everything has to be taught from scratch. Because of this, Manteo had already collapsed from overwork 4 days ago. All the people who had been with me for over a year had to take on the role of farming teachers. Me? I can't do it. I'm supposed to be an angel. Anyway, that doesn't mean the learners have it easy either. Many English people had thought of this place as something of a paradise flowing with milk and honey after hearing Walter Raleigh's indiscriminate marketing. Those who were excited about becoming rich in the New World nearly lost their minds due to the Angels' unexpected talent show and the sudden requirement to attend mandatory farming classes. And then, everyone should also quickly learn Algonquin. Why? Because you also have to teach farming to the natives. Oh? Was it Thomas Harriot? That friend is doing very well. He's promoting mutual exchange farming classes by teaching Algonquin to the English and English to the Algonquins. So everyone in this settlement is groaning through farming lectures and foreign language education. Phew, it's chaotic, but there's no choice. If settling thousands of semi-nomads and those who've come from thousands of kilometers away on another continent only requires this much effort, then it's still a great success. At least no one has starved to death or shed blood. That's how our community is running. Moderately peacefully, moderately busy. So what am I doing? Nothing special. just carrying some medicine, going around interpreting, managing various vineyards, caring for the injured, managing gardens and seeds, operating the cultivator in the potato fields, spraying pesticides, carrying building materials when building new settlements, mediating when people argue. I've just done everything. Sigh. Of course, there's still work left to do. Gee, good heavens. What is that, Nemo? It's an excavator, Mr. Bacon. It's like a carriage without horses, but with arms attached. We'll move that to Chesapeake Bay. How? Couldn't we make a boat? Bacon opens his notebook like a madman and continues sketching, while Shakespeare stands with his mouth open, pausing his writing. So many people had been called to Roanoke Island to see that there wasn't enough space to operate the excavator. Anyway, they say that the Central Plains were half jungle and half swamp before humans developed them. This place is similar. Most of it is forest and swampland, so logging and land clearing are essential to secure farmland. To cut down the trees in Chesapeake Bay and quickly clear out the roots, we need machines. Machines that can do the work of hundreds of people at once. Yes, if we make a barge and attach it to the back of the Nautilus or another ship. Anyway, couldn't we move it from Roanoke Island to Chesapeake Bay? You might wonder what we'd do if our only excavator fell into the sea. But it's fine.
Eva experimented.
Last time when the cultivator got stuck between rocks, I was so startled and sweating profusely, but after midnight it had returned to the warehouse. It seemed that if it was considered to be in an inoperable state, it not only gets repaired but also respawns. Thank you, Fansuku Software. Now there's only one problem left. We just need to build a boat that can move a 10-ton excavator. Nemo? Yes. That seems to be the biggest problem. Vicente, your problem lies in your heart. The reason people fear something is because it has no form. Don't be afraid of failure that hasn't even approached yet. I was speaking to Vicente, but suddenly Shakespeare's hand speeds up next to me, as if he had received some inspiration. What's this? Suddenly? Anyway, we'll find a way. Even if we fail, there's nothing to lose, so don't be too afraid. But if the boat gets damaged, we'll lose a lot, won't we? That won't happen. Probably. First, how about using these boxes that we use to hold grapes? Styrofoam won't work. Why not? Crunch. Aren't the waves of Pamlico Sound very rough? It would be dangerous to make a boat with this. But we tried an experiment and the result was crash. It crumpled under the excavator before even reaching the sea. Why didn't we think of that? Anyway, the problem became more complicated. We need something sturdy enough to withstand the weight of the excavator, yet light and abundant enough to quickly make a boat. There's no way such an item would be a consumable in our house. Chapter 42. Practical Problems. 2. Here. The liquid fertilizer is all gone, so I brought an empty water container. Where should I throw this away? As usual, clean it thoroughly and give it as a water container to houses that don't have no weight. IBC Intermediate Bulk Container. Tank. Why didn't I think of that? Is it light? If you remove the steel pallet from the bottom, it's plastic. Is it sturdy? Of course, with a steel frame surrounding the exterior. The shape? It's a 500-liter, appropriately large, square rectangular shape, so if we tie several together like blocks and place boards on top, a spacious barge would be completed immediately. We immediately collected IBC tanks that were being used as water containers in each house and tied them with wire. After gathering dozens, hundreds of tied IBC tanks and placing them on the sea, they floated, despite bobbing up and down. It was a success. We immediately fixed boards on top and the excavator. On it, thud. It worked. It's a success. We really floated that monster on the sea. It worked. We completed the barge and loaded the excavator on it. This means we can now transport anything from a highjet to the heaviest equipment by sea. Out of Roanoke, that is. Phew. Now whoever moves that will have quite a hard time. Looking at the structure, they'll have to attach that barge to the back and drag it to Chesapeake Bay. That's right. It will be a very dangerous voyage. Please do your best, Vicente. So it's me, as expected. Of course, you're the captain. Pay for your sins of trying to kill me 3 years ago, Vicente. The excavator? Since the Lord helps, it will return even if it breaks. The barge? We have plenty of materials, so if it breaks, we can just make another one. But if the Nautilus breaks, I understand. I'll try my best. Vicente Gonzalez, 48 years old. The first human to almost die by being run over by an excavator. Can he become the first human to be submerged in the sea along with an excavator? Huff, huff.
He survived.
Thank you for your hard work. Fortunately, the excavator wasn't submerged, and neither was Vicente Gonzalez. After a journey of several days, when the excavator arrived at Chesapeake Bay, people went crazy, gathering to see it. And then, crash. As expected, the agricultural land area in Chesapeake Bay began to increase several times over in an instant. The logging work itself doesn't take long. Rather, it's difficult to dig the ground, remove the tree roots, and completely clear them away. Our goal is not to obtain timber but to clear the land, so we need to completely remove even the tree stumps. When the excavator was mobilized for this work, the process accelerated several times. In an instant, tens of hectares of land were newly cleared and distributed to the Algonkins and the English. Now it's the end of April, so it was fortunate that it barely overlapped with the growing season for some crops. Those who built houses and churches with the timber obtained from clearing the land began to settle in Chesapeake Bay, one by one leaving their cramped ship cabins. And one more thing. Unlike Roanoke, there's no infinite clean water in Chesapeake Bay. Ugh. Ugh. My child has severe stomach pain. He keeps having diarrhea. First, give him this antipyretic. Margaret, I have the 4 fluid here. Because of this, some people suffered severely from stomach pains and high fevers. I placed IBC tanks left over from making the barge near each house where patients with stomach issues had appeared. Everyone, fill these tanks with water and add a bit of this liquid. You must never touch or drink this liquid directly.
Yes. Understood.
Everyone remember, for a while, you must boil water before drinking it. Either drink water mixed with bleach, or boil it before drinking. Just by sharing that simple fact, the mysterious disease subsided within days. People regained stability. It was a moment when villages and settlements were being created, and the colony was growing. As some of the busy tasks were completed, Walter Raleigh came to visit. Good heavens! I never thought this would really work. He was half moved to tears. Just until recently, I was on the verge of bankruptcy. Now there are thousands of subjects in the colony. And that timber, isn't it amazing? Such timber can't even be seen in England anymore. Is that so? Yes. To obtain oak trees of that size, we'd have to import them from Russia, Denmark, Sweden, and such places. Especially after more than dozens of ships were destroyed in the recent naval battle with Spain. There must be a timber shortage now. Then couldn't we take that back? Could we carry that large and heavy thing across the Atlantic? Even bringing 300 horses and cows was an enormous challenge. I risked my life for it. Sigh. If only there was a way to take that back, it would be so much easier to gain Her Majesty the Queen's trust. Spain, right. There was Spain in America. They had already sent several warships this way, thinking that this place might be used as England's military base. There had actually been conflicts. Ideally, England should gain a moderate upper hand in the war between the two, which would make things safer and more comfortable here. And, even if not warships, considering other exports, we'd find it convenient to have a few fast transport ships.
Lord Raleigh?
Couldn't we build ships here? Ha. How could that be possible? First, we'd need timber, skilled sailors and shipwrights, and all kinds of equipment, and supplies. Suddenly Raleigh's eyes widened and looked at me. He too had realized it. There are the world's most superior supplies here. Do you have any designs in mind?
I do.
Since I don't know much about ships, would it be alright if I show you a picture first? Of course. Please follow me to Roanoke. Understood. So Raleigh and I returned to the settlement on Roanoke. I immediately turned on the computer, captured screenshots from the 19th century city building game, Anno 1800, printed them, and brought them. I'm ignorant about navigation, so I'm not sure if this would be suitable. Ha ha ha. It's fine. I have experience in ship design several times, so I'll look at it and judge properly. Has such a ship ever existed in the world? This picture. Where did you get it from? I just brought it thinking that a 19th century ship would be better than what they have now. I read the printed materials and told him. The ship's name is CLI. It's called a clipper. The sail arrangement is extraordinary. How fast is this ship? I wouldn't know. I've only heard about it. My goodness, Lord. Thinking that he had received the ship's blueprints from God. The eyes of Walter Raleigh, the passionate explorer and plaything of the Queen, suddenly lit up. If this ship is built, its speed will be formidable. I guarantee it. Clipper. Even the name sounds swift and good. As an experienced sailor, he seemed to have intuitively understood something. I still don't really get it. Well then, we'll need shipwrights and designers, so we should move immediately. Actually, it's about time for me to return to London anyway. You're going back? To London? Yes. I'll probably arrive in London in about 2 to 3 months. Since many of the settlers want to bring their families, it will take a few months to gather people. So it will take about a year until you return. Pardon? Well, I suppose so. Then you should be careful. Of course, being careful is natural. No matter how familiar I am with navigation, I'm always careful.
No.
Not about navigation, but about London. There will be the plague. What? Since it's early May now, when you arrive in London, it will be around August, just when the plague starts to spread. Take care of yourself. Oh, and I have some things to give you. Take these vitamin supplements. If you give one to the sailors every few days, it should prevent scurvy. Scurvy? With just that pill? Yes. I showed him the vitamins I took out from my pocket, then took off my wristwatch and handed it to him. This is a watch fixed to Roanoke Island time. Check the time with this on the ship to determine longitude. With a map as well, you should have no problem figuring out your position. And, I'll prepare an outfit for you. It's the protective clothing I wear when spraying pesticides, but wearing just that should reduce the chance of contracting the plague even if you come into contact with patients. I'll also prepare masks, so put them on your sailors when you arrive. And I'll give you medicine when you leave. Medicine. Yes, I'm not sure if it will work, but if administered with an injection at the right time, it should be able to treat the plague. You're saying you can treat the plague? What do you mean by inject? Take Margaret Lawrence with you later. Ms. Lawrence will explain. And don't forget to add bleach to water to prevent it from spoiling. Blubber. Lord Raleigh. After hastily conveying various things, Raleigh's expression seemed dazed. It was as if a storm had swept over him. Chapter 43, Mission to London 1. What did I promise to give Raleigh? First, the vitamin supplements and the watch. These are items for navigation. Vitamin supplements are essential. Sailors of this era died en masse from mysterious ailments, and the fact that it was scurvy caused by vitamin C deficiency was only discovered centuries later. The watch and nautical chart are likewise crucial. It would take until the 18th century for John Harrison to develop a clock that works accurately at sea. And until then, there were no clocks that worked reliably without error at sea. But with just this wristwatch, everything changes. If you can tell time on a ship, you can determine longitude, and if you know the longitude, you can determine your position at sea. It's a privilege no sailor of this era enjoys. That's why Lord Raleigh's eyes rolled back. And a map made with 21st century technology? That goes without saying. But the protective suit, mask, streptomycin sulfate, and bleach serve a somewhat different purpose. I've been collecting these for a while. since I first discovered Eleanor and the 30 or so people from the Roanoke colony. That's when I started seriously reading the game catalog. I had no particular thoughts, just that, well, collecting them might come in handy. The protective suit and mask are essential items when entering dangerous areas, so there's no need to explain why I stockpiled them. Streptomycin sulfate can save the life of a plague patient if injected within 48 hours of onset. Originally, it was medical grade. I'm still not sure if it's legal stuff that Mr. Tanaka from the direct sales market gave me to mix with gibberellin, so it can be used on people just fine. Usually, buromycin is used for grapes, so I still don't know why he gave it to me. Bleach is for cleaning. It can also kill the rodents that spread the plague. In 1592, a major outbreak of the plague in London and its surroundings killed more than 15,000 people, over 10% of the city's population. The damage occurred mainly in unsanitary slum areas. Having seen such a historical event, I thought it was right to stockpile, and now it's proving useful. That was fortunate. I was reluctant to recommend London to Walter Raleigh since it meant he'd be going to his death. But if he says he's going on his own, Lord Raleigh? Are you really going to London? Well, I am going. If I don't go because I'm afraid of the plague, how long should I delay? 2 years? 3 years? I can't be away from England for that long. If he says it like that, it's easier to entrust him with the task. Then, do you know how to use the mask? Pardon? Isn't it something you wear on your face? Of course that's. Flutter. Is that a mask? Use it once, then wash it or throw it away. You must distinguish between the front and back when wearing it. Please tell your sailors that. Yes. Then. Next is the protective suit. It might look ridiculous, so it would be good to use it when you come in contact with plague patients. Pardon? Would I ever get that close to plague patients? Yes. Raleigh looked slightly surprised, then relaxed his expression. I showed him how to put on and take off the protective suit, explaining various precautions. And then, the method of using a syringe cannot be mastered in one go. A syringe? You mean that thing Ms. Lawrence was using? Yes. That's right, the thing used on patients. Raleigh's smiling expression stiffened slightly. He seemed to have caught on. And I noticed that he had caught on. Right. While you're at it, try to solve London's plague problem. Help the dying people and, in the process, earn the Queen's favor. Isn't that a good deal? Or is it not, since he has to go through a deadly crisis? Anyway, with nearly 10,000 witnesses, hiding my identity was already shot, and I thought there was no reason to hold back on exercising influence in England. Of course, I wouldn't force him. No, that. Surely not. While Walter Raleigh was stammering, I turned my head and spoke. I should go see Ms. Lawrence now. I need to check if she would accompany you. Yes, that's right. Walter Raleigh's expression became increasingly strange, but I didn't mind much. After all, he said he would go himself. Praising his courage to voluntarily go to London teeming with germ-carrying mice, I moved on. When I finally led Raleigh to the hospital, Eleanor, who had come to volunteer, was treating patients along with Margaret. It's closer to an elementary school infirmary than a hospital, but still, it's top tier among hospitals of this era. Raise your arm here. Tell me if it hurts. Aeraig. It hurts. It hurts. Oh dear. That must be painful. What's this? I never taught her to talk like that. Does the medical profession naturally cause convergent evolution in speech patterns? I waited until they sent off the last patient, then opened the door as soon as the hospital was empty. Fling. The 2 people who were busy organizing medicines and bandages turned their heads and greeted me. I had them sit back down, seated Lord Raleigh beside them, and said, Lord Raleigh has decided to go to London. What? The plague will break out in London. The people there will need Ms. Lawrence. Is she hesitating? That won't do. I need Margaret. I asked again more earnestly. In this plan, if Lord Raleigh is the foundation stone, Ms. Lawrence is the monument stone. Your dedication is needed, Ms. Lawrence. At those words, Raleigh flinched, and Margaret, Margaret hesitated for a moment, then nodded with a slightly blank expression. I'll go. Good. Then, as I was about to rise from my seat, someone grabbed my collar. When I turned, Eleanor was looking up at me, crying out urgently, Wait a moment. What is it, Eleanor? See, can I go too? Eleanor, would you be all right? I may not be as good as Margaret, but I know how to give injections, and I've pretty much memorized all the medicines here. I think I'll be fine. I turned my head to look at Raleigh. His expression seemed somewhat different from before. A bit more sharp-eyed, perhaps? Chapter 44. Mission to London, 2. Lord Raleigh? Would that be all right? Raleigh thought for a moment, then spoke. Eleanor? You also heard Nemo's words. Yes. Raleigh exchanged some kind of glance with Eleanor, then glanced at me and said, She says she wants to go. How could I stop her? There was something peculiar about the atmosphere. The plan was to help save London citizens while sending Raleigh away. It wouldn't work if Raleigh was reluctant. Come to think of it, the description of Raleigh in the catalogue was, the most unpalatable man at the Elizabethan court. That was actually the text. I speak to this most unpalatable man. I asked carefully, Lord Raleigh? Yes. Is something wrong? Then Lord Raleigh asked back with a trembling voice. What do you mean, is something wrong? Lord Walter Raleigh is a devout Protestant. One might question how devout one can be while living as the Queen's lover. But everyone has dual aspects. In his youth, he even participated in the French Civil War to help French Protestants fighting against Catholics. Even in his older years, he passionately attends church gatherings and graces them with his presence. Although he was quite odious, arrogant, dissolute, and greedy, making it difficult to find a commandment he hadn't broken, he still considered himself a servant of the Lord. And then, pardon. Since it's early May now, when you arrive in London, it will be around August, just when the plague starts to spread. Take care of yourself. When he heard this, he wondered what it meant. Also, and I have some things to give you. Take these vitamin supplements. If you give one to the sailors every few days, it should prevent scurvy. Scurvy? With just that pill. This is a watch fixed to Roanoke Island time. Check the time with this on the ship to determine longitude. With a map as well, you should have no problem figuring out your position. Stories that swept in like a storm. In the midst of that amazing celestial authority, Walter Raleigh barely regained his senses and scanned the objects before him. Vitamin. Supplements? Aren't these the mysterious medicines that Nemo gives to the inhabitants of Roanoke Island every few days? Can these prevent scurvy? And this is also amazing. Such a small watch ticks so accurately. Is this not a miracle of the Lord placed on one's wrist? And a map? When Nemo briefly showed it before, there were no empty spaces on that map, meaning it's a map containing the whole world. And he received a great medicine that heals the plague and clothes and masks that prevent the plague. He had been chosen for the prosperity and glory of this colony, to establish the Lord's kingdom in America. He nodded with emotion and followed Nemo. And then, he told me to approach patients. He had Margaret the doctor accompany me, and Eleanor who could work as her assistant. What all that meant was, in this plan, if Lord Raleigh is the foundation stone, Ms. Lawrence is the monument stone. Your dedication is needed, Ms. Lawrence. It was clear. After all the talk was over, Lord Raleigh looked up at Nemo for a moment. He was looking down at him with the same calm face as always. He spoke to me as if he were asking me to do something too obvious. So, I had no choice but to answer that I would do it. But now everything was clear. We're not just going to assemble a clipper ship, are we? That's also correct. And it's also true that we're going to find new settlers. But that's not all. No, that's, not even a secondary purpose, is it? Nemo nodded without answering. When Raleigh sought a more definite answer with his eyes, only then did he speak. Yes, That's right. Then, may I ask one thing? Yes. Why are you doing this? I am so curious. Oh Lord, did you not just tell us to go save plague patients? Did you not ask us if we could go into the jaws of death? Are you sending us into mortal danger to treat plague patients and, cleanse the most dangerous slums? When Raleigh asked, Nemo shook his head quietly and spoke. There was no disappointment on his face. Rather, it seemed as if he himself was sorry that he couldn't go. If you don't want to, that's fine. Pardon. If Lord Raleigh doesn't want to go, I won't force you. I don't want to force anyone into mortal danger. So Raleigh answered before his words were finished. I want to. Pardon. I want to. I want to. I desperately want to. Some call him a selfish bastard. And that description is exactly right. Some call him a dissolute toy playing in the Queen's bed. That description also clearly describes him. It would be correct to say he sold his soul for power and wealth, and above all, it would be correct to say he's a man who sold his soul to lust. However, I will go. As mentioned earlier, Raleigh is a devout Protestant. The angel commands him, go, go and save people, for that is the will of the Father. So Raleigh answered, I will do so. I will do so even if I die 1,000 times. He was an apostle. He might never become like the great and holy figures in the Bible. He would still be dissolute and extravagant, but he was an apostle. Nevertheless, he was an apostle. And his master and Lord tells him to head into the muck of death. He said he would use him greatly. He would now attain eternal glory and authority. I will go to London. I will go and seek your will. Raleigh obeyed. Eleanor Dare told this to her father John White, and John White told this to Thomas Harriot, and this was to be written in the Gospel. In the 1592nd year since the Lord came to this earth. It happened on May 3rd. Chapter 45. Treatment Center 1. The preparations for the voyage took about a month. Eleanor and Margaret selected other volunteers and taught them the basics of first aid, simple medical knowledge, and how to handle and maintain syringes as quickly as possible. The rest of the people worked together according to the angel's will, loading various cargo onto the ship. All kinds of medicines, clothes, equipment, and even food for them to eat during the voyage. Thanks to thousands of people participating in the preparations, the preparation period was reduced to 1 month. At this rate, they could set up a hospital as soon as they arrived. And so they set sail. About a month and a half passed. Well, there are places you need to go. Lord Raleigh pointed to Southwark, Houndsditch, Aldgate, and others as he spoke. These will be where the most rats swarm and the most sick people wander. In other words, all slums. We need to set up treatment centers in these places. I'll give you money, so secure a place in a building in the area and set up tents. Understand? I understand. Then should we set up tents as soon as we land in Southwark? Of course we all need to go to the Queen first. Who else would close public places by royal decree? Who would mandate wearing masks covering nose and mouth and prohibit various gatherings? You, my lord. Her Majesty the Queen. Ah! By this time, the plague should have started to spread gradually. Nemo said that by the time we arrive, even the court would have been aware of the plague. Then we should go to the Queen, tell her we've discovered a cure, and first set up treatment centers in the slums. Understand? Eleanor and Margaret looked at each other for a moment at Lord Raleigh's words. London's slums were notorious for all kinds of crime, sin, and filth. It was a very dangerous place. Yes, we should go. And the two didn't hesitate particularly. As if on cue, just as Walter Raleigh finished speaking, the ship stopped with a rocking sensation. When the three came out of the cabin, a nauseating stench hit them. They disembarked at Southwark, mixed with luggage and people. Then Lord Raleigh turned to the other two and said, Phew! Now, let's cross the bridge and report to Her Majesty the... Excuse me. What is it? Margaret grabbed Lord Raleigh's collar and turned her head toward their surroundings. And then, good heavens! A man whose skin was turning black from the extremities was collapsed on the street. People were fleeing around him in shock. When the man died soon, his body would probably be burned. Because he was a plague patient. How long would it take if we went to see Her Majesty the Queen and came back? At the quickest, 3 days. Streptomycin sulfate cannot save a person unless injected within 48 hours of onset. And the man before them did not look like he had just contracted the disease. And behind the alley where the man was lying, countless people were seen coughing. They would all die. Do we really need to go to the Queen first? Margaret asks. Lord Raleigh hesitated for a moment, then spoke.
No.
Only one of us needs to go. Then you go, Lord Raleigh. We'll set up a treatment center here first. Eleanor, will you be all right? This is a dangerous place. All of London is dangerous. We'll be setting up here, so please hurry back. At those words, the hesitant Lord Raleigh eventually nodded and caught a passing carriage to depart for Whitehall Palace, where the Queen resided. Mrs. Dare? Ms. Lawrence? About half of the cargo from the ship has been unloaded. Now what? Now there remained 100-some volunteers, medicines to save thousands, and disinfectants. Eleanor Dare and Margaret Lawrence looked at each other, then rolled up their sleeves. Let's set up the tent here first. Thus the first treatment center was established in London. And 5 days passed. Rumors began to spread throughout London. The closure of theaters that began during the last riot was extended, and taverns were closed. Public places where people might gather were shut down one by one, and London became more desolate than before. However, have you heard the rumor? The world of social circles and gossip was as lively as ever. What rumor? You know, the free treatment center. Ah, you mean the one collecting patients in slums for treatment? Isn't it run by some local church?
No.
I heard Lord Raleigh spent his private funds to set it up. What? That fellow? Surprising. Strange. How did that man suddenly become a philanthropist? Everyone was astonished by Lord Raleigh's good deed. What is that power-oriented man trying to do by winning the hearts of the poor? Surely he wouldn't need to gather influence in the slums. Moreover, isn't the plague going around now? In a situation where, if something goes wrong, his subordinates or even he himself might face death, he's not fleeing London but opening a large-scale treatment center? Could be foolish. Or perhaps he's suddenly awakened as a saint. It's like pouring water into a leaky jar. Someone declares. Think about it. If you can't cure the plague, what difference does it make by slightly easing the path of the sick? Only those who nurse them will die as well. Sadly, that might be true. From the perspective of minimizing damage, it's not wrong. While such conversations were exchanged, the person who first brought up the topic merely smirked, not saying anything more, waiting for them. Finally, when everyone seemed to run out of things to say and fell silent, he spoke again. I heard. Someone has come out alive from Lord Raleigh's free treatment center. What? That's impressive. But why? He must have found good doctors. They might be able to save 1 or 2 people. It's not just curing ordinary patients. They say they saved them from the plague. The gathering responds with silence to those words. For a moment, a light of could it be flickers in everyone's eyes. The plague is a terrible disease. A disease with virtually no chance of survival. That's what everyone thought. But on the other hand, they recall Lord Raleigh's American colony. That place with all sorts of mysterious things. That place where strange metals and mysterious fruits came from. A panacea. Perhaps. Why not go and get some? It's free, isn't it? I should send my personal physicians to get some. Of course, I'll have to give them some money. If they take it for free, wouldn't Lord Raleigh make a fuss? They think there might be an answer there. Soon they scattered to their homes, tossing all sorts of jokes among themselves. But they never forgot that rumor. Maybe, the very next day, doctors wrapped in cloaks began gathering in Southwark from all over London. Eleanor barely opens her eyes in the cabin. With only her nightgown on, she rubs her puffy eyes and speaks. "V. Virginia? I'll give you breakfast." Ah, she's not here. She is now across the Atlantic. Smiling wryly at her own foolishness, Eleanor briefly rubs her eyes and immediately puts on a ridiculous white clown-like suit. What he called a protective suit. A funny-looking outfit where the top and bottom are connected. As she leaves the cabin, others armed with protective suits and masks like her are running urgently. Following them, leaving the ship toward the dock, there are tents everywhere. Margaret, who recognizes her, runs toward Eleanor. "How many patients today?" 50 more added. "Goodness. How are there so many sick people here? Did you turn away those who were malingering or had other diseases?" "Yes. I scared them by saying if you administer the drug to someone without the plague, they turn into a monster." "Well done." Saying so, the two hurriedly lift one of the tent flaps and enter. "Arg! Save me. Save me. It hurts so much.
I'm burning.
Just throw me into the sea." "Mom? Mom? 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 Mom?" It's like a chorus of madmen. All kinds of screams, delirious speech, and last words mix to create a terrible polyphony. Eleanor bites her lip tightly and asks the nurse in charge of this area, "How much medicine do we need here?"
50 bottles.
5 new people came in, and we need to give injections for 10 days each, so... "All right, I'll bring it." "Margaret." "Understood. I'll take charge of directing the nurses here." Eleanor examines the amount of medicine needed and the number consumed, checking each tent. And then, fling! She arrives at the tent used as a storage area. Many workers are sweating profusely, carrying new medicines and syringes. In one corner, they're sterilizing syringes with boiling water and fire, and in another, they're repairing torn or damaged protective suits. Chapter 46. Treatment Center. 2. 50 bottles for tent number 10. "Yes. Understood. 50 bottles." "Mrs. Dare, the count of hygienic gloves doesn't match." "That's because about half of the gloves haven't been moved from the ship yet. It'll match when they're brought over, so don't worry." "Mrs. Dare, 13 more patients have been brought in. Where did they come from?" "They say from Aldgate?" "Then move them to the Aldgate tent. I'll organize it." There, Eleanor naturally took command. Today was another busy day, like a war. The inside of the protective suit was completely soaked with sweat, feeling as if she were swimming in water. While Eleanor was moving medicine boxes herself, sweating profusely, fling! Someone throws open the tent door. Wondering who it is, she looks and sees unfamiliar faces. She hasn't heard their voices in Chesapeake Bay either. Not only that, their attire is strange. Men who thoroughly conceal their entire bodies with flowing cloaks and gloves, holding pomanders in one hand. Is this the place? This is it. First, let's find out who's in charge here. No, men. The dozen or so men seem to be looking for the person in charge of this place. Eleanor took a deep breath, put down the medicine box, and walked toward them. "Are you looking for the person in charge?" "That's right, madam. Who might you be?"
Eleanor Dare.
"I'm in charge here." They seemed not to believe that quite a young woman was in charge, but, after observing the gazes of those around them toward her, they seemed to accept it and turned their heads back to her. "Do you have patients? You seem to be doctors." "Ah, it's not about patients, but about business. Lord Raleigh seems to be the owner of this place, but Lord Raleigh is busy and difficult to contact right now." "Bus? NS. That's right." They each take out rolled-up letters from inside their garments and hand them to her. Various crests were visible on the seals. "We came by order of the Earl of Pembroke. The Earl has shown interest in the medicine distributed here. We were sent by Sir John Lowell, for the same reason. This one is the personal physician of Lord Hawkins. I believe you've heard of Lord Hawkins. We also..." "Pardon." Suddenly finding herself armful of countless letters, The confused Eleanor puts down the armful of letters she had hoisted with an oof, and asks while dusting off her hands, "You want to trade medicine?" "That's right. First, please listen to the price we're offering. If there's a patient, they must come here directly. There are separate tools for administration, so our personnel will be needed. Then you can send them with the personnel."
No.
"That's not what I meant." Feeling perplexed, Eleanor continued to explain kindly to them. "This is a treatment center that treats the plague for free and was established with Lord Raleigh's private funds. Also, the personnel and equipment here cannot be taken out, and if one wants treatment, one must come here." "Here? His Lordship the Earl?" "Pardon." Although their expressions weren't visible because their cloaks were pulled down deeply, one could guess from their voices that the men's faces were scrunched up. They were looking around, even outside the tent, a slum where beggars and prostitutes loitered. "His Lordship the Earl cannot come to a place like this. We will purchase the medicine for a fair price, and we only need the help of the personnel here. You don't seem to have understood the explanation properly." "Ha ha ha, Mrs. Dare. It's you who hasn't understood properly. His Lordship the Earl wants the medicine. And there is nothing more. His Lordship the Earl will get the medicine. Since personnel are needed too, we'll have to invite you as well. Perhaps you could come."
No.
"I'm sorry, but here every hand is urgently needed. No one can leave this place, and not even one bottle of medicine can be moved. We said we would pay a price. It's still not possible." The doctors fell silent. Eleanor clenched her fists, feeling a bit frightened as the men surrounded her. "Madam, you don't seem to understand the situation properly. A mere unauthorized treatment center like this could be demolished. Look here, I've never heard of the Dare family. In that case, after first paying respects." At their threatening words, Eleanor tightly closed her eyes and shouted, "It's not possible." Then she pushed them away and forcibly closed the tent door. After tying the door with a string, the doctors began to protest. "Look here. Do you think this treatment center will be safe after this? Eleanor Dare. I've remembered the name. It seems there's no way for a pitiful woman to live safely in London now. To turn us away from the door like this. Do you think the Earl of Pembroke will stand by?" All of them were irritatingly cliched phrases. And, all of them were actually threatening. She knew the Earl of Pembroke, John Lowell, and Lord Hawkins. They were people who could actually butcher someone like Eleanor Dare in an alley one day and dump her into the Thames. Eleanor trembled slightly, then immediately moved to another tent. "Now, what's the situa?" From Margaret to the others, everyone was just looking at her. They had all eavesdropped on the conversation. Mrs. Dare, what should we do now? Can Lord Raleigh help in time? No, even if he helps, Mrs. Dare. Eleanor Dare thought for a moment, then tried smiling first. "Isn't it time to give that patient an injection? Give me the syringe. Hurry. Equals. Everyone. Why would Jesus' life be great?" Thomas Harriot began his sermon with that opening. Why is Jesus great, and truly the most perfect and complete human being? Equals. Give me the syringe. Hurry. But Mrs. Dare, teach those high-ranking people from over there told us. Those people are just one person each. Eleanor grabbed Margaret's trembling arm and said, "Why won't those people come here? Why do they just ask for the medicine? Because it's dirty here? That's right. But we can't leave here, can we? Because there are people dying here right now." What did he say? He told us to save them, didn't he? Then we should save as many as possible, right? You're right. Give me the syringe. Hurry. Eleanor's eyes trembled. Margaret hesitated, then handed over the syringe again. Equals. He was not the god of the noble. His enemies called him the god of prostitutes and beggars. It was clearly meant as a mockery, but they would not have known that they had bestowed the greatest royal title on the king of all. Yes, he is the savior of prostitutes and beggars. He is the king of slaves and madmen, and the representative of rebels, thieves, and all sorts of trash. Equals. Margaret, don't be afraid. I am not afraid. Don't lie. You can't lie. Eleanor looked at the endlessly streaming lowly ones. Their bodies smelled of urine, alcohol, and garbage. She could understand why they were despised in this city. They smell. That smell transfers when you get close to them. Disease transfers, misfortune transfers, sin transfers. Prostitute with no arms comes. A beggar with no legs comes. People who make you wonder if they've ever washed in their lifetime come flooding in. What would they say if we treated beggars before the noble people? Pardon. What more could they do besides kill us? Pardon. That's right. The most they could do was kill them. That's all they could do. They could only cause pain to their bodies, kill their bodies, and prevent their bodies from being properly buried. That's all. That's it. Compared to the celestial authority shining behind their backs, everything was trivial and base. The level of their threats was just that. Ugh. Margaret cried as she wiped a beggar's buttocks. She quickly cooled the syringe sterilized with fire and inserted it into the beggar's gluteus. Thus, streptomycin sulfate was injected into a beggar before any duke or gentry. The Lord is among the most vulnerable among us, because the rich do not desperately need the Lord's help. The Lord mingles among those who suffer and are despised. He suffers, rolling in dirty mud with them, because the Lord's words are not desperate to those in power. The Lord is beside them. After finishing his sermon, Harriet walked out of the church and looked at Chesapeake Bay and the Atlantic Ocean stretching far to the east. Beyond that are many people. They are the ones who have directly entered the jaws of death called London, engulfed by the plague. Harriet, without even realizing it himself, made the sign of the cross and murmured, "Lord, always come to the lowest place, and thus protect your apostles." You won't sell the medicine? That's right. I'm sorry, your lordship. No, I think Lord Raleigh has already made some arrangements. I don't know what's gotten into that man. He won't accept even when offered so much money. Very well. Thank you for your efforts. The Earl of Pembroke, John Lowell, Lord Hawkins, and many other nobles and gentry each received the bitter news of failure in their homes. And they remembered the names Walter Raleigh and Eleanor Dare. The treatment center could be demolished in 3 days, and the woman named Eleanor Dare could be turned into unrecognizable meat in the slums by tomorrow. They expressed their frustration at not getting a panacea that could cure minor skin diseases or annoying erectile dysfunction. And they didn't know that the plague bacteria had transferred from their doctors. The Lord always descends to the lowest place, because the Lord is not desperate to the wealthy and the powerful. Chapter 47. Harvest Season 1. It's gradually becoming harvest season. By now, even the grapes planted outside the original farm should have matured fully. Sijuy and Shine Muscat, along with various other varieties, have blossomed all over Roanoke Island. After a long time, I went out to harvest with the 30 English people, -2, who could be called the founding members of Roanoke Island, along with Mantio's tribe members. Now, we'll consider European export for the grapes. Fruits with cracks or pest damage should be removed separately right away. If those remain, fungi will spread to other fruits as well. What are fungi? Good question. 5 minutes later, Bacon fainted on the spot. Anyway, the situation is different from before when we would pick grapes and distribute them here and there, eating the problematic ones ourselves. Now that we're officially connected with England, we need to seriously research long-term preservation with Shine Muscat exports in mind. We place the grapes on a sorter, selecting the ones with good weight and health as a priority for packaging. Ultimately, long-term preservation is about minimizing quality degradation, not maintaining quality as is. From the start, we need to send only high-quality ones across the Atlantic. And we stack the grapes with sulfur pads that emit sulfur dioxide to maximize the preservation period of the grapes. I heard they don't use sulfites in wine production now. Without using sulfites, long-term preservation of low-alcohol wine is nearly impossible. In other words, we are the only group that can preserve wine long-term now. Imagine if something like a 1467 Unin War edition wine remained until modern times. That would no longer be something that could be harvested but would become a cultural heritage. Wine 2. For export. We already have infinitely regenerating glass bottles, so if we just get cork stoppers, wine becomes an exportable item. My ambition grows even more. Push massive amounts of grapes and wine into Europe, and fulfill the dream of a grape farmer. Export domestic wine to Europe. I'll achieve the dream that the instructor shouted about in the Young Farmer Wine Production Workshop, run by the local government. After being filled with emotion for a while, looking at the newly built vineyard and the stacked storage boxes, someone walks up beside me. It's grown very well. Now there won't be any worries when making wine. It was Mr. Harriet, the lawyer who collects my statements to write a Bible, and the interim pastor of this settlement. Well, I suppose so. If the vineyards continue to increase like this, someday beyond Roanoke Island, this entire Pamlico Sound area might be filled with grapes. That would be nice. I'd really like to see that. Is that so? Yes, Nemo. It is. That would mean that much more grapes and wine are needed, and doesn't that mean that your people in this land have increased that much more? Ah, I suppose it could be seen that way too. Yes, that's right. As if he didn't have anything special to talk about, Mr. Harriet, who came to my side, doesn't speak further. I too kept my mouth shut with nothing to say, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. Both of us, just enjoying this peaceful quiet. After a while, Mr. Harriet suddenly gazed at the horizon stretched to the east and sighed. Somehow guessing his inner thoughts, I asked casually, "Is it because of those who left for London?" Yes, as expected, I couldn't shake off my worries about them. Even while believing they would do well, I still wonder if they really had to go to that place full of death and malice. After all that hardship settling in the new world, why did they leave so suddenly? I couldn't alleviate his concerns. If I were a real angel, I would have flown to London right away. I could have watched over Eleanor Dare, Walter Raleigh, Margaret Lawrence, and others for 24 hours, looking out for anything that might harm them. But I'm just an ordinary human. I couldn't do such things. I could only believe. They will be safe. Is it because Nemo will protect them? That's not it. I'm telling you. I shook my head with a bitter smile.
No.
Not just because of that. Then, why? Let's not bring up complicated stories, like how Lord Raleigh is the Queen's favorite and the core of the American colony, so he's unlikely to come to harm. That's not what Harriet is curious about. So I told him a story that would reassure him. Didn't they leave to do good deeds? Pardon. It might be a crude analogy and a cliché story, but aren't good deeds like farming work? I spoke to him while picking a Sijuy grape from a styrofoam box at my feet and showing it to him. Just as grapes generally grow in vineyards, good deeds will be returned with good deeds. Harriet hesitated, then took the grape I offered and put it in his mouth. Watching him roll the grape in his mouth, I continued, "Don't countless small branches spread from a very small branch, and countless fruits grow on each of those small branches? More good deeds will grow around those who do good deeds. Is that so? Yes, well, that's right. At least that's what I believe. Equals. Disinfection. Disinfection. By order of Her Majesty the Queen, disinfection. Strong men carrying water diluted with disinfectant on their backs shout here and there, running through the streets of the Aldgate slum outside London's walls. Among them were mixed guards and Lord Raleigh's personal subordinates. They got up at dawn to go around every corner of the alleys, emptying rat traps, spraying disinfected water on streets and corners of houses, and purifying wells. As the hand of public authority reached a place that would normally have been passed by with contempt and disregard by high-ranking people, the locals gathered, muttering, to watch them. And then, "Harriet, from here I don't know either. Where does this alley turn? That way inside is indeed a dead end. We need to move after turning left first." Lord Raleigh, too, was moving in the midst of it all. As a London celebrity became visible and, moreover, wearing a strange white garment that a child or clown might wear, the eyes of the locals grew even wider. What's more, isn't this the time when the Black Death is going around? Why on earth has the Queen's favorite come all the way here? I think they're going to tear this place down and build a large mansion. Are they trying to drive us out? The plague is going around. First, they'll burn down the unclean neighborhoods. Chapter 48. Harvest Season 2. After such plausible stories circulated a few times, people's attitudes became defensive. Although they couldn't block the Queen's army out of fear, they unnecessarily avoided the paths they took or averted their gaze. And then, Walter Raleigh finally reached somewhere. Is this the herb woman's house? Seems like it. Naturally, beggars, prostitutes, and day laborers would not have money to find a proper doctor. Thus, they tend to seek out suspicious herb women, whether for faith or medicine. Raleigh, who had found this unlicensed clinic, trembled at the pungent stench from the front. This was the smell of something rotting, the smell of rotting meat and organs. And this place is far from butchery. When these two facts combined, one could roughly guess what was happening inside. As Lord Raleigh, who stood in front of the soldiers, hesitantly took a step forward after deliberation, Harriet grabbed his shoulder.
No.
You shouldn't enter here now. You need to take care of your body. Someone who's been up all night for days due to state affairs. Wawa! A cry, not that of an adult. At that sound, Raleigh's body moved before his head. The soldiers hastily followed him. My lord! Raleigh soon waded through the building where corpses with blackened limbs were rotting. He passed over the corpse of an old herb woman who had already died. And then, fling! When he opened the door, a child who looked about 5 or 6 was writhing with a high fever. Help! Rat swarms were teeming around the child. Lord Raleigh held his breath for a moment, then threw himself in. He throws himself into the sea of rats to rescue the child. With trembling hands, he picked up the child, and as he stepped outside, everyone was blankly watching him. The wary eyes of the slum prostitutes, the concerned gazes of the soldiers, all were directed at him. Trey, Treatment Center. And he speaks. There are no other survivors in that building. First evacuate the surroundings and burn it. To Southwark's Treatment Center. Send this child. Dare and Lawrence will save. You go too, my lord. Aren't you feeling dizzy? Now that you mention it. Of course, if you keep doing this. Harriet asked. Why do you go to such lengths? If you're going to work, you should take care of yourself while... Oh, my friend, you still haven't thrown away the nature of a skeptic. Raleigh, weakly but clearly smiling, comforted the child who had stopped struggling. When the path of salvation is open, what more could I ask for? There was a flame in his eyes. A flame that would burn his entire body and still have more to spare was blazing from his heart. Equals. Here. Eleanor felt her hair sticking to her sweaty neck as she ran. Just as she was heading to the cabin to change her protective suit after finishing the day's work, someone called her like this. This wasn't uncommon. Every time she commuted, people would ask her to help move a patient from their family or friends who had difficulty moving. This seemed to be such a case again. Ha! At least that's what Eleanor thought as she turned the corner. It was a dead end. There's nothing here? As Eleanor said so and turned around, something flashed in the dark alley. It was a blade. Do you remember Lord John Hawkins? The man licked his lips with his tongue and slowly walked toward Eleanor. Only now did she notice the man's features that she hadn't seen while rushing. Features like clean skin and plump cheeks, unlike slum dwellers. features that were useless to recognize now. It's really scary to get on the bad side of a high-ranking person. Do you know how scary that is? It's as scary as meeting a murderer in a remote alley of a slum. The man, seemingly satisfied with his humor, giggled before taking another step to close the distance with Eleanor. Soon he swung his knife and extended it toward Eleanor. He pushed that at least. Crash. Ha! Eleanor, who had tightly closed her eyes imagining the blade piercing her chest, slightly opened her eyes at the sudden shout. The boxes stacked beside the wall had poured over the murderer. He was still clutching the knife, writhing, and soon the movement stopped. Eleanor approached and lightly checked his pulse, but felt nothing. Are you all right? Kaya. Dee, don't worry. We won't hurt Mrs. Dare. A woman was speaking with a severe stutter, crouching down. Looking closely, she was a patient who had been discharged from the treatment center 3 days ago. A young prostitute who stuttered. Suspicious, you unfamiliar F-face W was there. So I followed. Mrs. Dare, are you all right? Are you hurt anywhere? Soon, other patients she had cared for and volunteers who worked with her came running, kicking the already dead murderer and checking her physical condition. What? Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine, but come with us for now. There's big trouble at the treatment center right now. Pardon. Eleanor was led by the hand of an old beggar and ran mindlessly with the others. Again, she headed from the dark, narrow alley in the middle to a bright, wide main road. When she squinted at the sudden sunlight entering her eyes and opened them, men with clubs gathered around the treatment center were cowering and fearing in front of powerless beggars. Not the other way around. The strong men were fearfully trembling and slowly backing away from the beggars. You bastards! Eat this! Eat this and get treatment here too. The beggars were throwing rat carcasses. They were from the rat traps that Eleanor and Margaret had set up all over the slum recently. Because of that, the rumor that rodents were the cause of the plague had spread to some extent. Dee, don't come closer. Help. And that knowledge was making the thugs who came to threaten the treatment center afraid. They didn't know what to do. Then they were startled by a shout suddenly coming from behind them. What are you lot doing there? A voice that now no one in London doesn't know. A face that now no one in London doesn't know because he had been running around the slums and alleys so much. The Royal Guard came directly. Oh shit! As Eleanor turned around, Royal Guard Captain Lord Walter Raleigh and the guards were rushing toward the thugs with drawn swords. The thugs hastily scattered and fled. While blankly watching that sight, Margaret came running from far away. Margaret hugged Eleanor and cried loudly. Mrs. Dare. When others said they didn't know where you went, I thought something had happened to you. I'm fine. I'm really fine, so. Hey, are you all right? Lord Raleigh? That child in your arms. A patient. First, this child. Cough. You're coughing. Lord Raleigh should also. The child first. Now there won't be any more attacks. After failing once, they won't try such nonsense again. From now on, I'll also assign guards here. Cough, hack. Please receive treatment first. This way. First, those who are already in line. As Eleanor and Margaret urgently supported Lord Raleigh, who had put down the child, the crowd's confusion ceases in an instant. The crowd gathered in front of them parted like the Red Sea to both sides. Even those who were already in line moved aside on their own to open a path for them to enter the makeshift infirmary. Hundreds of people were praying in that state. Some knelt with both hands raised toward the sky, and some repeated phrases like, "They are saints. They are saints," while making the sign of the cross over and over. In that strange and holy silence, the three walked to the half-destroyed treatment center. Equals. And that night, that tent over there collapsed. Raise it up. Gather the syringes and bring them here. Those walking on the street, the inhabitants of this slum, protect and rebuild this place. People who gather from somewhere quietly lend a small helping hand and then disappear. When those small hands gather by the hundreds, by the thousands. Ha! What happened? When Eleanor woke up the next day, the treatment center was almost completely restored. It's just a simple and childish belief like that of a child, that if you do good deeds, more good deeds will return. But sometimes even such beliefs are rewarded. From a very small branch, countless small branches spread out, and countless fruits grow on each of those small branches. Chapter 49. Queen's Summons 1. The Queen's decree was issued. As Lord Walter Raleigh suggested, gatherings of 5 or more people were banned in London. However, only within London. Fortunately, the upper classes who had places to escape to on the outskirts of London could enjoy conversations over banquets and refreshments in other nearby cities. And even there, the topic of conversation was that Lord John Hawkins has died. No, how did that happen? These days, there's no other reason for people dying. They say it's the plague. Wasn't it the Earl of Pembroke last time? That's right. We're hearing obituaries every other day. Didn't everyone escape to the outskirts of London at the appropriate time? They did indeed. How this happened, I just can't understand. This gathering may not be safe either. What do you mean, not safe? Haven't you all seen Her Majesty's decree? Don't they say that even after the evil energy enters the body, one appears fine for days? Among us here who look fine, there may be those with the energy of the plague. At those ominous words, the earls and barons gathered here clear their throats while creating distance from each other. Instantly, silence falls over the gathering. No, I think differently. Think differently? What are you trying to say? Do you all still not understand? That there's a commonality among those who died. Kung, monalichi. I don't know. The news is already widespread in London. They say it's the Lord's will. Well, life and death are all the Lord's will. Being too swayed by the nonsense of commoners. Weren't they all those who coveted that medicine? Pardon. They demanded medicine, and then about a week later they slowly grew ill and many died. Only some ran to the treatment center in time and barely survived. Indeed, perhaps it truly is the Lord's will. As the elderly noblewoman makes the sign of the cross, the rest also check the atmosphere and quickly make the sign of the cross. Questions begin to sprout in everyone's mind. Is it really the Lord's will? Did they die by the Lord's will? Anyway, that rumor that spread from London reached Richmond, Kingston, Oxford, Reading, and other places. They are nobles who died while coveting the Lord's medicine. Yes, Your Majesty. Though it's quite an impious rumor, it seems to be very popular among London citizens. I suppose so. Isn't it quite a beautiful story? From John Hawkins, the naval supervisor, to the Earl of Pembroke, who was the chairman of the Welsh Parliament, they have died despite neither having been particularly unpopular. Shouldn't we suppress the rumor?
No.
What suppression? And to Queen Elizabeth, who was staying at Windsor Castle to avoid the chaos in London. Spread it actively. Pardon. I have a thought, Lord Walsingham. Thus, the reputation of the treatment center blessed by the Lord skyrocketed day by day. The eyes of all London citizens turned to the slums of Southwark. October had come. In London, all public facilities were closed, and even church gatherings, including all meetings, were banned. When even the Queen's Accession Day celebrations scheduled for next month were cancelled, the streets became completely deserted, and the city was quietly waiting for the end of autumn and the beginning of winter. And it's definitely decreasing. Harriet, who had somewhat become Lord Raleigh's assistant, handed papers to Eleanor and Margaret and spoke. What is? Deaths. Except for when some nobles and gentlemen suddenly and unexpectedly died. The plague in London is subsiding. It's been that trend for days now. Death is ceasing. In areas where wealthy people lived, death had almost stopped, of course. And in Aldgate and Houndsditch outside London's walls, and in Southwark and other neighborhoods along the Thames River, the march of death was slowly coming to an end. As the weather grew colder, the season when rats thrived was gradually passing. Already having reduced the number of rats significantly with traps and poison, once winter came and they froze to death on their own, the momentum of the plague would diminish even more. Eleanor raises her head and looks beyond the tent. She saw that the entrances to the wards, where people had lined up long just last month, had become quite spacious. The days when volunteers collapsed from heat exhaustion while working all day in full-body protective suits were over. Now they could finally rotate their staff. It wasn't all over yet, but at least the end was starting to be visible. It's thanks to everyone's hard work. Margaret Lawrence said tearfully, "Good heavens, I never thought we'd finally. We shouldn't rejoice yet. Plague patients are still being found everywhere. It will disappear soon. At the current rate, wouldn't it be under control in a month or two?" It was an optimistic statement, but one that couldn't be denied. Winter would soon arrive. Margaret jumped for joy, saying she could finally sleep more than 6 hours a day, and Harriet also breathed a sigh of relief that the end of the quarantine work was finally in sight. And Eleanor, she felt dazed. As rumors spread that this place was under the Lord's protection, those who had already found Eleanor and Margaret difficult to approach began to act even stranger towards the two. They would say things like, "It's the saint," when Eleanor passed by, or they would make the sign of the cross instead of greeting Eleanor. Patients would strangely try to touch Eleanor's clothing, or those who made eye contact with Eleanor would hastily offer prayers. It was really uncomfortable and eerie. Did Nemo feel like this too? That couldn't be. He is a real angel and I'm just an ordinary person. Eleanor dismissed the strange thought and focused again on the conversation between Margaret and Harriet. They were discussing that it might be okay to make the sterilization cycle for syringes and other equipment more frequent. Fling. Suddenly, the tent door opens. Wondering what it was, she turned to see a familiar face. Lord Raleigh. It was Lord Raleigh who had already overcome the plague. He was still continuing quarantine work in various places with royal guards and his own servants. It had been difficult to see him for the past few weeks. "Ah, just as I thought, you're both here. It's been so long since we've met. It's hard to believe we're in the same city." However, Lord Raleigh's face showed emotions stronger than the joy of meeting longtime colleagues. Somehow he seemed anxious and urgent. After glancing around, he gestured to Harriet to step aside for a moment. As Harriet and others left the tent, Eleanor and Margaret were puzzled. No, what important conversation was he going to have that he even sent out his friend Harriet? "Do you two have time now?" "Pardon. I'm asking if you have time. There's a place we need to visit, and we might have to leave London." "Leave London? What for?" "Don't be too tense. Just tell me if you have time or not. Will any patients die if you're not here?" The two shook their heads. Even though they couldn't have left their posts a few busy weeks ago, now a few days would be fine. "Then let's go. The carriage is ready." "Where to?" "Right outside. First, let me tell the others that we'll be away for a while." "Hurry." Thus, without knowing what was happening, the two hastily handed over their duties and boarded the carriage, which then sped through London. Bewildered, the two looked around as all sorts of scenery quickly passed by outside the window. The carriage seemed somehow luxurious, with gilded decorations throughout. It's my first time riding something like this." When Margaret murmured, Eleanor also replied, "Mine too." Seeing this, Lord Raleigh grabbed his forehead as if they had a long way to go and said, "Both of you, when we arrive, don't walk ahead of me. Understand?
Yes.
And don't speak before being spoken to, and don't forget to add Your Majesty at the beginning of your sentences." "Pardon. Ah. Did I not tell you because I was in a hurry? No, I deliberately didn't mention it to avoid burdening you." Walter Raleigh spoke naturally and matter-of-factly, as if telling them they were going to lunch. "We're going to see Her Majesty the Queen. Her Majesty urgently wishes to see you too." "What? Cece, can we get off? Is that so surprising? After receiving revelations from an angel." For an hour, Walter Raleigh explained all sorts of etiquette and manners, but eventually realized that neither of them understood anything at all, and closed his mouth. So the carriage stopped. The carriage door opened. As the two followed Lord Raleigh with frozen steps, a huge door opened. After that, passing through magnificent corridors, magnificent doors, and people in magnificent attire, the two succeeded in completely turning into statues. Chapter 50, Queen's Summons. 2. When Lord Raleigh stood in front of the last door. Creak. Walt, have you come? Your Majesty. They faced the monarch of England. While Raleigh naturally bowed to the Queen, the other two were terribly frozen and creaked like machines. Ah, are they? The rumored. Yes, they are. Both had memories of cheering and waving hands when the Queen's carriage passed by from afar. They seemed to have memories of slightly making eye contact at that time. But it was different now. Both of you, from whom did you learn medicine? When the Queen approached them and asked the question, Eleanor felt like she was going to faint. We haven't learned it, Your Majesty. Your Majesty. Eleanor quickly adds the honorific to the end of her sentence as Lord Raleigh points it out. As Elizabeth laughs at the sight, Eleanor and Margaret also awkwardly laugh, following the Queen. Only Raleigh hits his forehead as if he knew this would happen, and Elizabeth quietly whispers to Raleigh, They're cute. 2 young maidens. One is a widow. She has a daughter across the Atlantic. Ah, is that so? The Queen nodded and said, So, I heard you developed a cure for the plague? At those words, Eleanor almost answered, Pardon. Come to think of it, this was the situation they had agreed upon before coming to England.
Yes.
While gathering herbs near the colony, we found a sick person and brewed medicine, but thinking it would be better to inject it into the blood vessels, with the help of the natives. Can it be made in England too? Pardon. If I give you a patent, can you make and sell it in England too? Startled, Eleanor looked at the Queen, and the Queen's eyes momentarily changed like a viper's. It would be impossible, Your Majesty, since those ingredients only grow in America. Her expression softens again in an instant. Is that so? Yes. Moreover, even gathering those ingredients is very difficult and required the help of the natives. The Queen silently glares at Eleanor, Margaret, and Raleigh, then continues. 2 uneducated women, with the help of natives, made a medicine that happened to be suitable for the plague? And just as you brought that medicine, the plague was spreading in England. Your Majesty, do you know what people in the world call this? They call it a miracle. For a moment, the air around them grows cold. The Queen nods toward Eleanor and says, Show me the device you used to inject that mysterious medicine into blood vessels. Eleanor trembles, looking back at Margaret and Lord Raleigh, then hands over the syringe. Elizabeth examines it carefully, puts it down, and says, To make such a thin needle, no, such a thin tube. That's right, Your Majesty. The people of America, though they don't know the Lord, cannot be called barbarians. Now that they also know the Lord, they are equal to us or even superior. Having gained such allies, it would now be simple for Your Majesty to drive Spanish hegemony from the Atlantic. Walt. Yes, Your Majesty. I don't want to discuss alliances with those I haven't even met yet. Isn't that too distant a matter? I want to focus on this miracle before my eyes. Had the Queen noticed something strange? Could it be that the Queen, Angel? Now Eleanor could barely breathe. An angel brought this, telling you to go and save London. Eleanor almost burst into tears. Her Majesty the Queen knew everything. Now Nemo would have to convert the Queen, or if not, how about announcing it that way? Pardon. It seems this was too difficult for you to understand. Lord Raleigh. Yes, Your Majesty. I think it's an excellent strategy. Your complexion does not look good. You seem to have a lot of cold sweat on your face. They say you've just recovered from the plague. Has your health not returned yet? No, that's not it. Then fine. Eleanor almost collapsed as her strength drained away. Margaret was still trembling. I've already told Lord Walsingham beforehand. His minions will soon spread rumors throughout London. Then you just need to act accordingly. Understand? The Queen seemed to notice something was off, but unable to imagine a real angel, she laughed it off. Eleanor responds with a surprised expression. This wasn't acting, to the Queen's words. But, isn't that a lie? It's not a lie. It can be called a bit of spice sprinkled on a plain truth. In fact, the truth isn't plain at all. If you don't want to, there's nothing to be done. But if you are loyal to my authority given by the Lord, you should naturally follow. The Queen's face hardened seriously. We are now at war with Spain. Your existence will unite the hearts of the devout English subjects and prove that the Lord's holy will lies in England's victory. Therefore, you must have received a revelation about London's plague from an angel. What do you say? Soon the French Queen Mother Catherine de' Medici will die in 1589. From 1592 to 1593, there will be an epidemic in London. Was Descartes born in 1596? She still recalls those words heard when meeting the angel for the second time. She still doesn't know who Descartes is. He's not born yet. Eleanor glanced at Lord Raleigh. Lord Raleigh also signaled to her with his eyes. Do it. I will do it. For the sake of my country and the Lord. Good. A most excellent decision. Elizabeth smiled with satisfaction and smiled at the two. I always disliked that self-proclaimed saint, the witch Joanna, Joan of Arc, from France. Now we have something similar too, and two at that. I'm not saying you're witches. I mean you'll become saints. Walt, what do you think? The French witch was captured by our army and burned under a fair trial, so she must have been a fake. But these two, unlike that witch, were revealed to save people instead of killing them, so they are many times greater. Indeed, your opinion is exactly the same as mine. Clap. Elizabeth declares while clapping her hands.
Margaret Lawrence, Eleanor Dare.
Yes. Yes. You are now Saint Margaret and Saint Eleanor of London. That's how it happened. We were picking herbs near Roanoke Island on the east coast of the New World. That day, many herbs were found, so we were praying to God. One when the saints were gathering herbs in the deep valley of Roanoke Island and offering prayers to the Lord, satisfied with their day's harvest. Then, suddenly Margaret opened her eyes during prayer and said she heard a strange sound from over there. Margaret opened her eyes during prayer and said, Eleanor, do you not hear a strange voice from that deep place? So we went over there. 3 and the 2 daughters of man went forth to the place where the voice came from, greatly afraid and also marveling. Then suddenly, flash, and the angel. 4 and the 2 saw and heard that the angel had 6 wings each, and when the wings moved, they created all kinds of winds, and the body in the middle floated in the air, and its radiance was purer than the sun. 5 and he spake without ceasing, saying, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, who was, and is to come. 6 in one hand he grasped radiance, and with the other hand he lifted a sword that could cut well-tempered metal. Anyway, it was amazing. 7 the 2 knelt with reverent hearts and worshipped. So the angel pointed east with the sword and said, Go, go and save England, and disappeared. And then suddenly, the method to make medicine came to our minds. 8 and they asked the angel, Why dost thou appear unto us? 9 and the angel raised the great sword and pointed eastward, saying, Thou, Eleanor, thou, Margaret, go ye and save your homeland and seek the will of the Lord as a thirsty person seeks a spring. 10 and the angel's form disappeared without a trace, and the 2 discussed, saying, This is not the work of man, but the miracle of the Lord. You shall grind the herbs, and I shall extract the juice, and we shall hurry to London to defeat the evil disease. Are you writing down exactly what I'm saying? Of course, Saint Eleanor. Please continue. You're really writing down exactly what I said, right? No, they weren't. Chapter 51. The Return 1. This is the 5th new year since I came here. Angel, when is Mom coming? I miss Mom. So please tell her to come back. Virginia, you can't do that to Mr. Nemo. Ha ha ha. She'll be here soon. Virginia Dare, who was toddling when I first saw her, is now 5 years old, or 7 by Japanese age counting. Your mother went to do a very noble task. She'll come back with lots of gifts for our Virginia. Wow. Will I have many new friends too? Of course. 10. 20. No, more than 30 will come. Wow wow. Mr. Nemo, is it okay to say that much to a child? Don't worry, Vicente. This time that many children really will come. If Raleigh is as politically capable as I've seen, and if the streptomycin worked well, then Raleigh, Eleanor, and Margaret would have become heroes of London. Especially if Raleigh became not simply the Queen's favorite, but a powerful politician with popular support and a solid power base. Then how many resources could he bring? First, since the settlers who arrived earlier said they'd bring their families, will easily exceed 500 people. There will be many family unit settlers. Yes, Raleigh will filter out those who come alone just to make a quick fortune in the colony. Probably many will come with the intention of settling here permanently. Besides, isn't London always suffering from overpopulation? If the plague situation was handled well, Lord Raleigh could bring considerable resources. I'm really expecting a lot, Walter Raleigh. How many will come? 700? Or 800? Maybe over 1,000 might come. Then this community's population would approach 9,000. But how would I utilize all those people? Building clipper ships, trading, growing wheat, potatoes, and grapes. No, I'm not even hoping for 1,000. With just 800, there's so much we could do. First, shipbuilding would become much easier, and if there are just a few more blacksmiths among them, I could realize dreams I couldn't implement before. Yes, just bring 800 people. Oh my! What is our granddaughter doing? Holding on to Mr. Nemo's pants. Grandpa, when is Mom coming? Eleanor will be here soon. So don't worry. Ha ha ha. With all these expectations, we successfully finished the New Year's Day party, followed by several days of Christmas holidays. After that, about a week passed. A ship is visible. Mr. Nemo, I can see a ship. Where is it, Manteo? Over there, east-southeast. Taking the telescope from Manteo and looking in that direction. Oh, a ship is slowly coming over the horizon. The Red Cross flag at the very top confirms that it's an English vessel. Behind it, one by one, more ships reveal their masts. Like that, all 5 ships that had left this place are returning. One more. Another one. Yet another one. Huh? It's Mom. Mom is waving her hand over there. Mom really came. While Virginia jumps around excitedly, we were frozen and couldn't do anything. Others who came to see the ships at Manteo's call also stopped with their mouths open as the number of ships exceeded expectations. Like that, 22 ships reached Chesapeake Bay. Mr. Nemo, we've returned. Volunteers gathered by the thousands, so we had to sort through them and... Mr. Nemo? I cautiously asked Walter Raleigh, who had excitedly jumped down to the pier. How many people in total? How many? Excluding all the sailors and laborers who will return to England. Yes, about 2,000. Wow, double the maximum I had expected. Among them, blacksmiths and shipwrights combined make up 1/10. They're veterans who built England's finest ship, the Ark Royal. Whoa! 1/10 of them are the skilled technicians we'd been desperately searching for. Of course, we brought 100 more dairy cows. 100 more dairy cows needed for smallpox vaccination of the natives. It felt like the protagonist of an American self-help book who helped an old lady on the street, only to find out she was a third-generation Chable and inherited a massive fortune. I was dumbfounded. I think we need an explanation. It's the land of the holy women. Good heavens. It's the angels' continent. Right now. I asked Walter Raleigh and Eleanor Dare and Margaret Lawrence, who disembarked after him. What exactly happened here? Equals. So, started as nothing special. Her Majesty the Queen took me and Margaret back to Whitehall Palace in London, under the pretext that there were people staying in London to care for the poor, and she couldn't be the only one escaping from London. In fact, early winter had come and the plague was almost contained, so she returned to the palace. Anyway, at Whitehall Palace, she praised us as England's true holy women, gathered all sorts of nobles and clergy, and in front of them made us tell the story of meeting the angel. Did you talk about me?
No.
Well, it was about you, Mr. Nemo, but appropriately distorted for propaganda. I understand roughly. And then, after that, we had no time to treat anyone. Wherever we went, crowds gathered to grab our hands and clothes or ask for prayers. Anyway, so statues were carved in some square. I preached with the Archbishop of Canterbury at Westminster Abbey and experienced all sorts of strange things. Then, when you were about to leave, volunteers from everywhere gathered, saying they would follow the holy women? That's right. Exactly. I see. Holy woman? That. Please don't. All right, Eleanor? Miss Lawrence? Is that all there is to the story?
No.
That's not all. Eleanor and Margaret peek at each other, then turn to Raleigh. Suddenly, Raleigh stands up and bows his head to me. Mr. Nemo, thank you. It's all thanks to you. What do you mean, Lord Raleigh? I am no longer a lord. Then, Raleigh lifts one corner of his mouth and says, Please call me Baron of Roanoke. Oh, and John White, you must come with me to London on the next voyage. What? What for? It's time for you to have something attached to your name too. Isn't that right, Sir John White? White's face freezes the moment he hears this. I briefly consider his life's hardships. Come to think of it, this year is 1593. This is the year he should have died lonely, having lost his daughter and granddaughter. See, sir? Me a knight? Really? Born to a humble commoner family, even when Lord Raleigh appointed him as governor, his family background had to be fabricated as that of a fine gentleman class. But now no fabrication is necessary. Nobility. Because the White family is no longer just a fake shell. White stared at us speechlessly for a moment, then looked out the distant window. Tears of joy fell from his eyes. Anyway, so, let me summarize. 1. Eleanor Dare and Margaret Lawrence have become holy women. 2. Walter Raleigh Lord is now Walter Raleigh Baron. And his loyal follower John White will also become nobility. That's roughly the summary. Now let's look at the facts that branch out from there. 1. Many people have requested to immigrate here, following Eleanor Dare and Margaret Lawrence. 2. Walter Raleigh Baron has now become the Queen's complete right-hand man and has come here with massive support. He brought shipwrights to build clippers along with blacksmiths, carpenters, and all sorts of experts. The population exceeded 10,000 overnight. Among them, more than 2,000 have never seen my immortality with their own eyes. Meanwhile, the number of craftsmen has increased several times. Walter Raleigh has already started designing ships just by looking at the clipper drawing I gave him, gauging the internal structure and overall layout. The shipwrights have begun processing the abundant timber of the New World according to his orders. Am I happy? Of course I'm happy. My forces have become several times stronger in an instant. Moreover, most of the new immigrants were treated for the plague in London. They've already witnessed miracles, so if I scatter them among the other 8,000 people, they can naturally be converted into Nemo faction believers. But what's next? Chapter 52. The Return. 2. I also have many concerns. What should I do next? Those people have received grace from the holy women I sent, and they followed in their footsteps all the way here. Therefore, it won't be too difficult for me to recruit them. But having accepted thousands of English people, this place is now inevitably connected to England forever. In the future, the population here will grow from 10,000 to 20,000 to 100,000. How should I recruit them? Can a society with a population in the tens of thousands continue to operate in the previous makeshift manner? And one more worry. Spain. England and Spain are still at war. It's no exaggeration to say that the entire Atlantic is their battlefield. And new English sailing ships are being built here? Thousands of English people living here? For Spain, this has become a place worth mobilizing a large army to crush. How will I fend off their possible invasion? Thus, two problems arise in my mind. They say too big a gift can simultaneously become a big problem. After pondering these concerns for a long time in my head, Lord Raleigh? No, Baron of Roanoke. Just call me Walter. Walter, there's one thing I'd like to ask. Ask anything. I wonder if it's possible to import something from England. I've slowly reached a conclusion. What is it? Walter asked, and I answered. Cannons. This colony needs power. Look, it's Sir Walter Raleigh. As a ship with the emblem of an angel holding a saw appeared on the Thames, many people began to gather. Spectators wave handkerchiefs at the ship and shout cheers. Long live Raleigh! Long live England! Baron of Roanoke! Please look this way. If Eleanor and Margaret became holy women of London, then Walter Raleigh, who brought them and led London's quarantine efforts alongside them. He was already enjoying popularity equivalent to a saint of London. As the first contributor to ending the plague, he received the title of Baron of Roanoke and massive rewards. A truly great man. Wherever Raleigh went, citizens' cheers were unceasing, as if a king was passing by, and this continued until the carriage carrying Raleigh headed to Whitehall Palace. After getting out of the carriage, Raleigh took two people with him and went straight to the audience chamber. Soon, the Queen and her ministers, and the nobles of the court who were waiting for him, greeted him. Your Majesty, this time too, I have brought precious treasures from the New World. And just as he had done in the voyage before last, numerous boxes streamed into the audience chamber. Elizabeth's eyes were tinted with greed, then shifted her gaze to the two men Raleigh brought. So, you are John White. I am honored to meet your Majesty. Look forward to it. I shall give substantial rewards to those who have expanded my territory. As the Queen's smile swept over White, he nervously bowed deeply. And the Queen's gaze immediately moved to the other man. Who is that person? He is an envoy sent by the native emperor. At that moment, everyone in the court fell silent. The man who gave the precisely made syringe as a gift, contributing greatly to containing London's plague. The owner of precisely cut gems and vast territories, all sorts of sweet fruits and overflowing wealth. A great Christian who sought the Lord's word himself and was baptized. A powerful ally across the Atlantic. He is called Oytoten, vassal of His Majesty. The American whose name was mentioned briefly turned his head and nodded. Then he shifted his gaze again, looking around the palace. With an indifferent face, Elizabeth raised one eyebrow at his attitude, and the nobles whispered. His reaction is completely different from when that person called Manteo came here a few years ago. Indeed, as a servant of the great emperor, does he think England's court is nothing special? The imagination of the great native emperor's court grows lushly in their minds again. Raleigh let their imagination develop on its own and spoke. Your Majesty, I would like to petition to bring one item to the Virginia colony. An item? Yes, we need cannons. Cannons? Indeed, we need cannons to counter the attack of the Spanish. English cast iron cannons are slightly inferior in quality to continental bronze cannons, but are several times cheaper, making them an important strategic resource for England. Export is also prohibited. Your Majesty, Virginia will be an important stopover to strike Spanish colonies in America. Also, now religiously, Lord William Cecil, the Secretary of State, whispers to her as she contemplates. Other ministers of the Queen also come to her side and whisper, making the Queen's eyes become clearer. It was clear that the ministers' opinions had converged for the first time in a very long while. The Queen waves her hand to dismiss the ministers. Then she looks at Lord Raleigh with a satisfied smile. Yes, you are right. I will issue a charter permitting the export of cannons to Virginia, so arm the colony. We must protect the land of angels, mustn't we? Thank you. Now it's time to hear what the Emperor's envoy has to say. At the Queen's words, Raleigh naturally steps back to let Oytoten come forward. And Oytoten briefly looks around the palace. Swish. He takes something out from inside his clothes. As Oytoten approaches the Queen, an attendant extends a hand to receive it on her behalf. The Queen soon receives the item from the attendant and flinches. To Elizabeth, Queen of England, a gift from the Emperor of America. May our friendship be eternal. Words engraved on a cylinder made of aluminum. When she pulls the ring placed on top, the aluminum lid opens smoothly, revealing the contents inside. It was a precious pineapple. Hearing that pineapples are rare in Europe, His Majesty sent this. It is a pineapple sealed in aluminum. Queen Elizabeth opens her eyes wide and looks alternatively at Oytoten and Lord Raleigh. Then, looking at the thin, sharp lid she just removed, she says, "What should I do with this lid? Should I melt it and make it into other ornaments?" As Raleigh tries to answer, Oytoten speaks first. "Throw away." Though his English was awkward, that one phrase silenced the crowd. "What did you say?" "To us, precious. To him, not. He throws away." He also throws away dirty clothes. It's okay, because new ones are made. Is it the same here? No, we practice frugality in the name of the Lord. The chiefs of England are poor. Oytoten recalls Nemo. He used all things and immediately discarded them. Yet there was no shortage in his wealth. But the people here move carefully, anxiously, wearing all sorts of splendid jewels. Nemo was different. He didn't handle any object with care, because he didn't need to. The only things he handled carefully were food and drink, like that pineapple. So, with pure curiosity, Oytoten asked, "Raleigh, are such small jewels precious to you people?" Rumors about the wealthy emperor of the New World grew luxuriantly today too. And people sell land? The beasts made of iron, are they not here? The one that supposedly tore Spaniards to death. And thus, the courage of some adventurers who dreamed of plundering that wealthy emperor was broken. Chapter 53, Building the Clipper 1. July 1593. Wow, it's already July. These days, time seems to be passing insanely fast. Or, I've just lost my sense of time. Unlike the precisely scheduled life of a 21st century grape farmer, the life of a 16th century angel is, how should I put it, extremely relaxed. Sow seeds around this time. Harvest grapes around this time. The new settlers are causing a commotion wanting to see the angel, so let's set a time around this period. It's really like around this time in this way. Without utility bills or rent to pay by specific dates, life spreads out without a sense of time. What gives me a sense of time is the rapidly growing Virginia and this way, just about 3 more steps this way. Bring more hammers and nails over here. This settlement, the shipyard, which took months to lay the foundation, erect pillars, and make many people suffer, is now on the verge of completion. The sawmill built next to it is also smoothly starting to produce lumber without me having to use any special future knowledge. The only place I paid special attention to was the timber drying facility located between them. Here, please design the ceiling so heat spreads evenly. Understood. Also, we'll place stoves here and there, so please pay special attention to prevent the wood from cracking or catching fire. I'll keep that in mind, Mr. Nemo. This was worth my knowledge and assets getting involved. Whether it's timber or fruits and vegetables, they all grow mold if you make even one mistake. First, the sawn timber undergoes a simple but special process, then is moved to the drying facility. Then we install stoves to maintain a high temperature in the drying facility and move several sulfur fumigators from the farm to manage various pests and diseases such as mold and insects to prevent damage to the timber. We prepared plenty of dried timber like that and prepared the shipyard facilities. Mr. Nemo, Walter Raleigh has returned with as many as 210 cannons. This is enough to properly arm several large ships, and we waited until Raleigh returned. Perfect timing. I've prepared timber for the ships here. Please take a look. It's just right. Excellent. May I check it? Of course. Ah, you said that's the timber drying facility over there? I should go there, right? Let's go see together. Well then, let's. What's wrong? Raleigh's face stiffens slightly as he sees the timber stacked in the warehouse next to the drying facility. The wood is different from what I expected. Strangely fresh, and it has a greenish tint. That's because I gave it special treatment. I soaked it in agricultural copper hydroxide. The outer coating has been treated with preservatives, so it will last much longer than most timber from this era. Plus, I fumigated it with sulfur vapor, so there's no worry about insects or rot after months of storage. Oh my. What do you think? When can we start building the clipper? Raleigh absent-mindedly strokes the timber, then looks at me and says, once the design is done, immediately. Done. Success. Looking closely, its internal structure is clearly different from other ships on Earth. This frame like this? It's not just the arrangement of the sails that's unusual. After that, we devoted ourselves to reverse engineering. Is that so? I wouldn't know. You said you were ignorant about ships, Mr. Nemo, but as someone who has designed ships myself, I can assure you, this ship is an innovation. Of course, it's an innovation. It's a 19th century ship. I took screenshots of the ship construction scenes from the loading screen of Anno 1800, along with the ship's form and manufacturing process visible in every corner, and presented them to Raleigh. The rest is up to Raleigh. It feels like asking someone to build an Iron Man suit after only watching the Iron Man movies. But this is our best option. I've done my best too, and the conclusion. I can't build this according to the original design. What did you say? Has he finally gone mad from overwork? How much were the facilities we built for this, and how much time did we invest? If you look closely, here, this frame part. Yes, I can see it too. You're talking about the slightly darker part, right? Yes, Mr. Nemo. That part appears to be steel. Should we modify the design? I don't think we can procure this much steel, though. Raleigh cautiously asked me, and for now he was right. A steel frame? We're not a blacksmith shop, and we can't make something like that with 21st century farm technology. Even if we melt and reuse steel from our house, it would ultimately be done in a primitive 16th century forge. But thinking a bit more, I could find the answer. Then how about modifying this part like this? What do you mean? Don't we have another material that's stronger than steel and available in large quantities? Lexan PC panels. The frame of our clipper ship is now Lexan panels plus steel square tubes. Equals. One day, I turned on a game with an excited heart and unexpectedly fell into the 16th century, separated from family and relatives. I was even stabbed twice. In that situation, I'm not grateful that Fansuka Software gave me a cheat, but I'll thoroughly use the benefits I've received. I won't waste even a single part of this farm. Lexan panels. They're already stronger than steel and lighter too. I'll make a truss structure with steel square tubes and insert Lexan panels into the faces. That's how we'll make the ship's keel. Of course, the normal lifespan of Lexan panels is 10 years under sunlight, but that's the same for iron and wood. Lexan panels need to see sunlight to corrode, but since we'll use them for the internal frame, there's no problem. When we combine the transparent panels and steel square tubes we've been accumulating, the estimate roughly works out. It's definitely possible. Just to be sure, I had the Craftsman experiment, and it didn't fall short in terms of strength or elasticity. The result was definitely possible. Yes, I'm going to build a sailing ship with Lexan panels in the 16th century. I mean, it seems crazy to put engineering plastic into a 19th century warship, but if that's the case, we shouldn't have built a 19th century warship in the 16th century in the first place. So once we really did it, the construction of the Clipper was back on track. The ships will become fast transport vessels carrying the colony's goods, while simultaneously becoming warships loaded with numerous cannons to protect our colony from the Spanish Navy. Chapter 54. Building the Clipper. 2. Timber is continuously produced as we clear land for farming, and similarly Lexan panels and other materials are steadily produced, so building the ships was now just a matter of time. Probably within a year? Maybe it will be built much faster than that. Raleigh asserted. Good. Wait a little longer, and 19th century sailing ships will export our farm's special 21st century improved grape gift sets to England. In the meantime, we'll scout the surroundings with the Nautilus and monitor the Spanish Navy's movements, while defending the coast with cast iron cannons imported in large quantities from England. As long as the Spanish army doesn't invade right away, there's no big problem. No, even if the Spanish army invades, we won't just meekly submit. We have enough military power. Fire! Rat-a-tat-a-tat. I once read a column about why the 19th century British Empire's army was the most powerful army. It mentioned having a lot of gunpowder based on saltpeter from the Indian Empire. What's important isn't just the fact that they had a lot of gunpowder. Fire again. Rat-tat. Rat-a-tat. What's important is that having a lot of gunpowder meant they could practice shooting anytime. It's the same for us. The reason is clear. Black powder consists of 3 main ingredients: sulfur, potassium nitrate, charcoal. All of these come from our farm. Not only that, but items like iron pipes and copper tubes are also produced endlessly, so we were able to implement a one household, one musket policy. That's right. Each household should possess at least a firearm to be truly American. Of course, that's not the reason, but first of all, with alligators and wolves appearing more frequently than Edo period tigers in the area, every household inevitably ended up with a firearm. After solving the colony's immediate defense problem that way, the time had come. Now, finally, it's time to return with the grapes. Walter Raleigh rubs his hands together and shows a meaningful smile. That's right, Walter. Somehow, the same smile forms at the corners of my mouth too. But I'm curious. Why did you tell me to bring cork oak bark? There's a reason for everything. Wine bottle stoppers. Finally, with the introduction of cork, the 3 marvels of long-term wine preservation, sulfites, cork, and glass bottles, will be complete. This means we can now export the wines we've been brewing after aging them for a few years. Yes, Mr. Nemo? It's for the Lord's precious blood. So please prepare it thoroughly. Ah, I understand. I'll do my best. Wine equals the Lord's blood. I didn't lie. I'll never forget my experience here. Mr. Nemo, you've been my fountain of inspiration. That wasn't my intention, but I'm glad you found inspiration. Shakespeare needs to continue his creative activities, so it's bye-bye now. Anyway, since he's become a follower of Nemo, he'll do his part in England. The Clipper is still far from completion. Raleigh and Shakespeare returned on the same ship they came on from England. After sending them off, I focused again on shipbuilding and various other tasks. The most important of these various tasks was the issue of administration. Equals 10,000 people. In 21st century Japan, this would be a small number equivalent to just a few apartment complexes, but in ancient times it's enough to establish a country, and in this era it's enough to form a small to medium-sized city. It's fine for the residents of Croatan Island, who number only 200 or 300, but the enormous population living in Chesapeake slowly needed control. People are starting to cultivate gardens around their homes. That's good news. It seems there's enough land.
No.
It's not entirely good news. Could you explain in detail, Mr. Hewitt? Especially in land distribution. Until now, people have been tilling fields together and sharing, haven't they? Yes, because there wasn't much cleared land to cultivate. That's right, but that won't be the case anymore. It's time for everyone to start coveting land. Hewitt was the first to notice this trend. People are gradually planting vegetable seeds they brought from Europe near their homes and dividing the land. Of course, it's not serious now. But Hewitt glanced at the excavator and tiller parked in a corner of my hut as he spoke. Well, land clearing that would normally take years has been completed in just a few months, so it's only a matter of time before this issue erupts. So when everyone had to share food in a cramped space, they worked together and shared, but now the scale has become large enough for everyone to split up. That's right. I heard from Manteo that even the natives are in a similar situation. Got it. I understand roughly. Then we should divide the land appropriately into parcels and distribute them. My work is going to increase from now on. How should I handle this? Is it time for the privatization of commons? As I nodded my head appropriately, Hewitt, who looked worried for some reason, started to gauge my reaction. Why? There would be no such issue in heaven, but normally in such cases, humans establish a government to mediate conflicts. In other words, Mr. Nemo doesn't need to take on all the work. Yes, I know that. I forgot. Living too much like a village head, I just got schooled by a 16th century person about, this is a government. You can make the governance system sophisticated. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Mr. Nemo might not know much about earthly matters. No, that's understandable. How humiliating. Anyway, it's time for Mr. Nemo to form a government. I suppose so. A government. Dividing land among 10,000 people is not something that can be decided quickly by gathering people for a meeting like we've been doing. Something more systematic and precise is needed. Like an Excel file. Huh? As I pondered for a while, Hewitt blinked his eyes. No, he probably means what's there to think about. Just tell Lord Raleigh and delegate various tasks. But that wouldn't be efficient. I think I know something. Mr. Hewitt, would you come to my room after waiting a bit? What? I found the tablet in my bag and called Hewitt. What is this object? It's glowing. Now, it's time to restore the pride of a 21st century person. This is something called a computer. Computer. You don't know? Here, press the left button of this mouse. Click. The picture in this frame is moving. What is this? I smiled at Hewitt and said, now this is called a click. And I took the mouse back from Hewitt and opened Excel. With this, we're going to create a government. If I've received it, I'll use it. Excel is definitely included. Chapter 55. Auxiliary Brain 1. After bringing up the topic with Hewitt, I immediately took action. What? Suddenly, what are you doing? Daughter? What's happening? Mr. Nemo? What brings you here? First, I called Eleanor Dare and Sir John White. Please wait a moment. The Nautilus hasn't finished docking properly. What is that? Pu. I should also call Vicente. He's the representative of about 100 Spanish people. You said you needed me? No. Suddenly, you thrust the square object at me. It opens? Ugh. The light. Needless to say, Manteo, the representative of the natives. What do you need us for? You said you'd teach us about something? Then of course we must go. Along with Hewitt, a thoughtful man who first initiated the government discussion with me days earlier. His skeptical nature balanced by genuine intellectual curiosity, plus Harriet, an accomplished scholar whose astronomical knowledge and linguistic abilities made him an invaluable human resource, and the contemplative Bacon whose methodical mind absorbed new concepts like a sponge. I called all the people I've been working with in this settlement. Walter Raleigh is currently in England, so these 7 people are all. I took them straight to Croatan Island. Then I brought them to the farm, sat them at a desk, and distributed tablets and laptops. 2 laptops my parents used for office work, 1 laptop I used as a college freshman, 1 laptop I used after graduating from college, 1 I used while working, plus work tablets, Netflix tablets, and more, adding up to 12 devices, both new and old models combined. People usually don't throw away old laptops or tablets. Of course, I formatted them all to prevent them from finding any suspicious future data. Similarly, I set the language to English for all of them. From now on, think of these as your auxiliary brains. At my words, Bacon suddenly raised his hand. Feeling somewhat ominous, I nodded to him and he asked, "When you say brain, do you mean to say that people think with their brains rather than their hearts? Was this future knowledge too?" As I painfully nodded, Bacon again quickly scribbled something in his notebook. Ignoring him, I continued. "Anyway, the reason this is called an auxiliary brain is simple. It will remember things for you, perform complex numerical calculations for you, and organize data for you." At my words, Eleanor's eyes widened, and she grasped the tablet I handed her, examining it from all angles. It looked like she was about to say, "Computer, remember to bathe Virginia tomorrow." So I moved quickly. "Now, look." As the pre-connected projector activated, my screen appeared. "You need to properly see what you can do with this. == Bacon couldn't believe the scene unfolding before his eyes. The average age of the early Roanoke Island settlers was 23.3 years, excluding minors among them. "Mr. Harriet, since you seem to understand the usage most quickly, try calculating this. What is 24,514 multiplied by 16,435? Mr. Hewitt, you're understanding just as quickly. Good. Then here, I'll give you some random names and try to automatically sort them in alphabetical order." "Excellent. Eleanor? Calculate what date it will be 13,954 days after August 13th, 1377. Tasks that might take someone all day to organize were performed in an instant with just a few finger movements, without a single mistake, without a moment's error." "Mr. Bacon? Mr. Bacon? Oh yes. What is the average number of tribe members in the Algonquian tribes in our settlement?" That is about 271.38 people." "Good. May I check how you constructed the function?" Yes. He could understand why he called it an auxiliary brain. No, this machine was faster, more precise, and more amazing than a brain. This is a miracle. That's right. This is a miracle. Without this, how many office workers, no, angels would have suffered from tedious tasks? With this alone, all troublesome data organization or numerical calculations become unnecessary. That was true. The past few days spent learning how to operate this, pressing unfamiliar keys, and staring at this monitor until his eyes popped out were painful. But after mastering its use, he rather regretted not knowing about such a thing earlier. This is the hope of all mathematicians and astronomers. With this alone, one could be liberated from all sorts of terrible calculations. Harriet also trembled, muttering here and there beside him. Other people like Manteo or Eleanor seemed to perceive it as just a convenient tool, but they were different. From now on, the full name, date of birth, occupation, family, tribe, hometown, gender, religion, immigration date, and residence of all those who immigrate to this colony will be recorded here. And the area and location of the land that should be allocated to them in the future will also be organized here. So, what can we do with this going forward? What can we do? When we can easily organize, classify, and rank information about tens of thousands of people at every moment, what can we do with that? Everything, Bacon unconsciously murmured. Ugh, it was incredibly difficult, almost painfully so. The cultural and conceptual gap felt like trying to explain color to someone who had only ever seen in black and white. It was entirely natural that Manteo didn't know how to read, literacy wasn't common in his society, and the others were so fundamentally disconnected from modern culture that they made even the most technology-resistant 80-year-olds in the 21st century seem like digital natives in comparison. Their minds weren't hardwired with any of the basic conceptual frameworks we take for granted. In that sense, teaching octogenarians how to use smartphones at a senior center is overwhelmingly easier, practically trivial in comparison. At least those seniors have lived through the gradual evolution of technology, have seen telephones, television, and computers develop over decades. They have reference points. It's about teaching 21st century culture to 16th century people. I didn't think it would be easy, but I tried anyway. Chapter 56, Auxiliary Brain, 2. I laid out the textbook I used when studying for the Computer Literacy Level 2 certification and taught them from scratch. No, don't do that, Vicente. Don't break it. That's the power button. Since the computer looks hot, how about cleaning it with water? Think about it, Eleanor. What would happen if you cut open a person's stomach and poured cold water when they're hot? No. It might come back even if it breaks, but sparks could be dangerous. You want to cut it open and examine its structure? That's good curiosity, but it would be difficult to understand even if you saw it. This is a machine processed so minutely that it's invisible to the human eye. Hey, don't touch it. You'll get hurt. So, from scratch means things like this. How to hold a mouse. The purpose of a keyboard. The meaning of function keys. The meaning of a desktop and the use of shortcut icons. And various other things. Why doesn't this move when I press the screen? It's different from my daughter's. That, Sir White, is because your daughter is using a tablet, and you're using a laptop without a touchscreen. Aya! Suddenly the screen turned black and I can see my face. What is this? That, Mantio, is because you accidentally pressed the power button. Titch, there are people trapped in here. We must save them quickly. No, there were still videos that weren't deleted. It was really fortunate that these were electronic devices that would never break. If they had broken down, my workload would have increased 3 or 4 times. Anyway, the concept that nothing on the screen actually exists, and that they are merely the results of reading abstractly complex information in a specific form, was naturally impossible to make them understand. I just said everything on the screen was an illusion. That wasn't all. Eleanor? Smile. What? Click. Here. This is called a photograph. Kyra. My soul is trapped in here. No, it's not. Kyra. A demon is imitating me from inside the picture. That's not it either. The concept of a digital camera was also impossible to explain in a short time. The best I could do was to have them accept it as a very detailed portrait that's drawn very quickly. So you can imagine how difficult it was to transfer photos taken with a digital camera to Excel and save them in a table. That's right. It was really, really difficult. But there was a definite reward for the hard work of educating these 7 people. And so, 2 months passed. Is it okay? I've heard talk about ghosts, souls, and such. Don't worry, ma'am. Do you doubt Mr. Nemo? Look this way and smile briefly, and it's all done. 1, 2. Click. Ugh. My eyes, it's blinding. Don't worry. It's almost over now. Here, just write down your name, birthday, hometown, and family members' names. I'm 21 years old, and for occupation, should I say housewife? All done. Now go back, and we'll allocate a suitable field for you. Tach, thank you. In England, it was my husband's and my wish to farm on our own decent piece of land, and now like this. In this manner, over several weeks, we gathered data on approximately 11,282 people. Even those who were reluctant changed their attitude when told they needed to register their identity to be eligible for land distribution. It might be difficult to do something with this data right away, but it will make things much easier when establishing an administrative system in the future. I can guarantee that. That's why it didn't take that long to distribute land according to religion, hometown, and ethnicity. This was the power of electronic administration. Oh, my goodness. There's a general impression people have about heaven. Angels in white clothes, and humans who have become like angels, floating in the sky, living in eternal light, praising the Lord in eternal glory and happiness. Lions graze like sheep, milk and honey flow on the land, and the vast, beautiful meadows are good to walk on barefoot. There, angels are beings who guard beside the Lord's throne. They praise the Lord's very existence and sing of eternal happiness. But, Is this also a product of heaven? Click, click, click. Harriet watched the smiling faces of about 1,000 people in the Excel file, continuously scrolling up and down. Is there such a thing as administration in heaven too? If so, how great and efficient must heaven's administration be? The concept of decimal points that appeared here was also amazing. A system that conveniently expresses numbers less than 1 in decimal rather than fractions. Isn't it amazingly efficient? In addition, various mathematical symbols that conveniently organize formulas, and the way these mathematical symbols are arranged and used. All of this inspired Harriet as a mathematician. How much mathematical progress could be made with the inspiration gained from this Excel? Harriet couldn't sleep properly again today. He fiddled with Excel all day, and barely closed his eyes at dawn. Heaven might be a garden of mathematics. If so, God is probably the greatest mathematician. Perhaps it might be possible to describe the world with mathematics. If that could be done. In a half-asleep state, Harriet got up and opened the laptop again to look at the screen. What appears on this screen is not real. What? Then what is it, you ask? Information expressed in an encrypted. No, just think of it as a moving picture that describes something. It's an illusion. That's right. Mr. Nemo also said so. The world inside this laptop might already be expressed in mathematics. Then perhaps this world too. Such a thing might be possible. In Harriet's mind, something that ancient Pythagoras thought about, and that future natural philosophers and scientists would think about, began to emerge frantically. He stood up excitedly. He discussed his realization with Bacon, who was the closest to a scientist here. A world expressed in mathematics. As Bacon usually advocated, one explores the truth of the world under rigorous and systematic experiments. And as Harriet just realized, one expresses what has been explored as abstract models through the material of mathematics. The world is a poem written with ink of water, earth, fire, and wind. But the language that forms that grand poem is mathematics. Scientific methodology. That seed, very slightly, began to be planted early in this land. In this new world. In the conversation between Harriet and Bacon. Chapter 57. New Ventures. 1. Finally, we've completely settled in Chesapeake Bay. Food to feed 10,000 people continues to be supplied, and the harvest of potatoes, wheat, and barley keeps increasing. The number of livestock has also grown considerably since the beginning. This means we can now conduct challenging experiments. I gathered the settlement representatives who had been running around with computers and said, "Now we're going to prepare for corn cultivation." The effort I put into preserving corn seeds while working hard on my garden finally pays off. What? By corn? Do you mean that crop with yellow kernels that we grow? Yes, that's right, Mantio. It has excellent productivity and tastes good too. But don't we and other natives already grow it on our own? I have superior seeds. Besides, the natives have only cultivated it on a small scale until now. I couldn't grow it until now either. The reason was clear. Corn grows really quickly, abundantly, insanely, but in return, it depletes the land's fertility. There's a reason they say corn farming runs on electricity. It takes so much water and nutrients from the soil that land used for corn farming for several years often becomes completely barren. The amount of fertilizer needed for corn farming is more than what comes from our house. A field slightly over 10 ares, about 1,000 square meters, consumes an entire bag of fertilizer. How could we manage that? But now that we've established a settlement in Chesapeake Bay, the soil has improved, and the water supply is much smoother, so it's worth trying. This place has so much water that our main concern is draining it. There are several swampy areas near Chesapeake Bay, so let's turn those into fields. Let's start by setting up windmills and pumps to drain the water. If it requires that much water and fertilizer, how do we farm corn? There's a reason I said the time had come. Here, we'll send people near the inner part of Pamlico Sound to extract a certain mineral, spreading out a resource map of the area copied from the game catalog. I told those gathered here. After some processing of that mineral, We'll sprinkle it on the land and farm on top of it. Then the fertilizer problem will be solved. You're saying to use minerals as fertilizer? I've never even heard of such a thing. Yes, Vicente. We will probably be the first. What is the name of this mineral? We have sufficient manpower. Therefore, it's not bad to develop a mine or two. The product from this mine will soon become as precious as gold. I told Vicente. Phosphate rock. After wrapping up the matter of corn and phosphate mine development, I adjourned the meeting. Walter Raleigh, returning to Chesapeake after a long time, had secured an enormous amount of capital. This was thanks to the new variety of grapes and aluminum becoming as expensive as gold in England. Because of this, he was able to bring 50 more heavy cast iron cannons to the Virginia colony. All of them would be loaded onto the clipper ships to be newly built. It would be nice if we could make cannons directly in the New World, but non-English cast iron cannons mostly crack and explode, so there's a big limitation. What Raleigh didn't know was that it was because English iron contained phosphorus. Anyway, since we bought English cannons, it was time to build ships to install them on. Transparent panel 15 was just used. Click. Transparent panel 17 should go in now. Click. The workers moved quickly at Walter Raleigh's words. Raleigh, staring at the strange black panel that came into his hands as soon as he returned, muttered, "Wait, why are 20 panels missing? According to the records, they should all be in Warehouse 3. Ah, that's due to lack of space. We temporarily moved them to Warehouse 4. Tell me in advance next time. Everything has its role. What if they get mixed up? Find them right away." At his words, the craftsmen grumble about things becoming strict but run off quickly. They wondered what difference it would make just moving a few panels to a different place. And in that strict work environment, Walter Raleigh was sweating nervously. What is this? It had been quite a while since he suddenly received this black slab called a computer from Mr. Nemo, and it took several whole weeks to learn how to use this strange object. It was only after Mr. Nemo and other apostles cautioned and taught him several times that he barely grasped its basic usage. Calculate, sort, organize. Those three seemed to be the basic uses of this thing called Excel. Judging by its structure, there seemed to be other complex and sophisticated functions, but he didn't even dare to try touching them. But even that was enough. Raleigh was just beginning to realize how important it is that everything is visible at a glance. He was able to give procedure and system to processes that everyone used to do by instinct, memory, and habit. It feels like moving to another dimension from a work environment where it was natural for a few items to disappear or things to go wrong. Raleigh assigned numbers to each material and alphabetical symbols to each type of material. As a result, Raleigh soon came to clearly see where hundreds and thousands of components that make up that ship were going from and to. Naturally, efficiency increased as well. Useless tasks and various confusions and frictions were reduced to a quarter. This strange sense of omnipotence, the subtle sense of stability that comes from everything finding its place. Walter Raleigh significantly brought forward the completion date of the ship in his mind. This might be completed even earlier than expected. Soon, the world's first clipper will be completed. Virginia's new warship that will sail the Atlantic at an unprecedented speed. That's how Raleigh learned the power of computerization. From what I've heard, my PC has several times better performance than the supercomputer set up by the Japan Meteorological Agency in 2002. Of course, they say its reliability can't match industrial computers. I should have learned programming or computer engineering. My computer knowledge only extends to studying for the Computer Literacy Level 2 certification. I've handled computer parts too, but only up to assembly. Therefore, I couldn't use this computer to calculate the orbits of spacecraft and projectiles, or connect various measuring equipment to predict the weather, due to my limitations. So for me, a computer is a gaming device or an office equipment. Those bastards at Fansuku Software, if they were going to transport someone, they should have given at least a year's notice. Then I would have stocked up on history books, game packs, and studied for various certifications. Whatever the case, many problems were solved with just Excel. Chapter 58. New Ventures. 2. Excuse me, Mr. Nemo? What is it, Mr. Hewitt? I've finished organizing the data. I think we need to consolidate it. All right, let's tell everyone to gather. To go to Croatan, we should leave around this evening. Now 8 people, including Walter Raleigh, with 8 laptops and tablets, organize information about residents and various resources. That information is transferred to my storage PC on the first Sunday of every month, checked for any duplications or conflicting content, and then finally stored. That's how our Settlements DB database operates. It will probably run like this until my 8 terabytes external hard drive fills up, which won't happen. For now, since something like a government has been established for our settlement, I can rest assured for the time being. Mr. Nemo, I actually came to talk to you about that issue. What's the matter, Mr. Hewitt? What issue? About this government. Hewitt tilts his head and says, I understand that thanks to this Excel, we can now more efficiently grasp the current situation. Thanks to Excel, the work was done much faster when distributing land to people. That's right. But what are you curious about? To my question, Hewitt answers, well, in the end, isn't this just a list? A government, according to the Lord's will, gathers the will of equal free people to elect representatives or monarchs, prevents chaos, and enforces rule by law. Representative election, community order establishment, rule of law. What? Except for, according to the Lord's will, it's similar to social contract theory. Did such things exist in this era too? Bacon was born, but it's still a long time until people like Hobbes, Locke, or Rousseau are born. I only know their names, not exactly when each was born. I'm not a Western history major. I hide my bewilderment and nod. That's right. You're correct. That's what a government is. But I don't understand how this list is related to forming a government. Mr. Hewitt. Yes. Haven't you become a bit busier recently? What? Come to think of it, it does seem so. Yes. Of course you don't know. I recall the time before the introduction of Excel. During the farming season, I tended my vineyard, helped clear land with an excavator, plowed fields with a tiller, or transported cargo everywhere with a hijet. When it wasn't farming season, I had to help with logging operations, running around with a chainsaw. Plus, as a daily routine, storing various consumables, including medicinal herbs, is also a job. Just the physical labor I do is this much. And then, Mr. Nemo, beasts have eaten all the potatoes in our house. I don't know what to do. Mr. Nemo, we too are planning to get married. Please give us your blessing. Mr. Nemo, our child has disappeared. What should we do? Where could our child have gone? All the civil complaint work fell to me. Because I am an angel. Even in kindergarten, when kids fight and can't resolve it, don't they pretend not to and go tell the teacher? It's exactly the same principle. The angel, presumed to be the most fair, wise, and great, would be able to solve most problems. Such magical belief was prevalent in the settlement. This wasn't a problem when there were 200 or 300 people. Even when natives flocked in large numbers, it was still manageable, because there were already chiefs who mediated conflicts. But when Raleigh brought 700, 2,000 people, that's when it became unmanageable. At least for big tasks like land clearing or clipper construction, I would gather people for meetings, but all sorts of miscellaneous tasks besides those big tasks fell to me. My days became increasingly desolate. Now, when you go to people with computers, how do they react? First of all, when they get married or move, they have to report to us, right? Yes, because we need to update the list. As a result, naturally, when such important events happen, they ask us for advice or how they should proceed. I see. Additionally, since we're in charge of land distribution, when people are dissatisfied with land distribution or disputes arise between people, they call us to serve as judges. Since we have the list. Oh, that's right. Now I'm liberated from 15 hours of labor a day. A single human, Even with all sorts of cheats, can't live with 10,000 complainants. Of course, being called an angel, I can't whine, wow, this is too hard. Can't you help me with this? It has to sound more plausible. As Mr. Hewitt said, free and equal Algonquians, Englishmen, and Spaniards naturally seek your guidance. Representative election. Also, to prevent confusion among themselves, don't they ask you about various matters? Community order establishment. Thomas Hewitt's eyes trembled as if he had just realized something. Then only the task of enforcing rule by law remains. Rule of law. Law, how should we? The Lord has already established and abolished laws for you. So isn't the law within your community your responsibility? The most difficult part remains, and I can't take that on too. I shook my head benevolently and told Hewitt, gather people and create just laws. The Lord will be watching over you. What do you mean the Lord is watching? Why doesn't the angel directly establish laws? Just as the Lord wishes for the children of men to be righteous, he wishes for human communities to be just. But as he respects human free will, he respects the universal will of human communities. I have already given you commandments, so it should be you who creates just laws, using those commandments as a foundation. I understand. However, just as the prophet Nathan rebuked David when he ruled chaotically, and Daniel warned Nebuchadnezzar when he worshipped idols, I too will warn you when you stray. We will make sure that doesn't happen. Saying that, Hewitt turns around, seemingly moved. Being an angel has many inconveniences, but there's one convenience. As long as you say anything plausibly, it's generally accepted. I respect your free will, so I'll abstain from lawmaking and various duties. But I also cherish you, so I'll intervene whenever I want to. I think it's a flawless logic. A perfect logic with a perfect outcome where I neatly cherry-picked all the rights with no obligations. I celebrated the achievement gained from my conversation with Hewitt by treating myself to a special Crusader Kings play session. It was a game I was enjoying after a long time, freed from all sorts of arduous duties. Hewitt moved busily. He tried to gather representatives of the English, Spanish, and Algonquians to begin discussions about forming a government. Having secured a registry, what naturally followed was taxes. Didn't the Lord also say not to neglect paying taxes? Currently, whenever handling public affairs, they just gather people as needed and handle it. Resources are covered by what Mr. Nemo provides. But that can't continue in the future when the settlement's population grows to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions. Naturally, they need to collect taxes and form a proper government to run this settlement. Creating laws and the process of enforcing them all require resources. This is fundamental, an obvious fact that doesn't need to be explained to anyone. Many philosophers have said it, and for many people this is common sense. Therefore, Hewitt believed that this most basic task would proceed easily. Oitoten, we need to collect taxes. Please gather your tribe members. Then Oitoten replied, what is tax? At that moment, everything went dark before Hewitt's eyes. Chapter 59. Gift Economy 1. Phew. Good work. Mr. Nemo, you worked hard. Not at all. I burned through it. Something ended like a storm. In the meeting hall where all kinds of discussions took place, everyone was exhausted from conversations going back and forth in at least 3 languages. No, I was planning to stay one step away from the lawmaking process. I knew it would be tiring, but they all gathered because of me. It would be strange if I just abandoned everything and played games by myself. Anyway, a significant portion of the problems have been solved now. Issues like land ownership, differences in tribal customs, and other complex matters have been somewhat sorted out. It wasn't complete chaos, though. I thought it would be chaotic with dozens of people from various tribes and different denominations gathering. But surprisingly, the atmosphere in the meeting hall was orderly. When people like Eleanor spoke up, dozens who had been chattering enthusiastically just moments before would suddenly fall silent. Thinking about what the criteria might be, they're all people who have been with me for a long time.
Eleanor Dare, Thomas Hewitt, Manteo, Vicente González, John Witte, Walter Raleigh.
I saw a religious authority surrounding them like an aura. Looking back, the meeting process showed who would become the center of our settlement in the future. I should keep that in mind. Anyway, that's how it was. We've mostly finished the difficult issues today, so the rest should be fine. All we need to solve are issues of sectarian autonomy and precedent. The issue of natives who continue to believe in spirit worship, the tax issue, and concerns about conflicts with nearby native tribes, especially the Powhatan tribe. It's a problem that will be resolved after dozens of people debate for half a day without breaks. So there's nothing to worry about. Ha ha ha. The conversation just keeps going around in circles. The starting point was the tax section. Once the government is established, everyone will pay a little tax. Then what does this government give back to us? What? Give back? So it just takes without giving anything back? There was no scenario like in some Ice Guy hero story where everyone does somersaults while accepting explanations like, this is tax. It's used to handle public affairs. The natives were in an uproar because they couldn't understand the concept of giving something to this a government. Don't you all already offer labor or goods to Mr. Nemo? That's different from this. I don't know what's different either. It reached its climax especially during the discussion about the Powhatan tribe. When the natives brought up something complex and confusing, mixing Algonquian and English, the English and Spanish people got dizzy and interrupted the meeting. Should we accept the Powhatan tribe as allies? Should we be hostile to them? It was something like that, but it was difficult for me and the Europeans to understand. Wait, if the Powhatan tribe gives a gift, we shouldn't accept it.
No.
You must accept it. You must accept it, but after accepting it, you must return several times the amount. What? But they're saying not to accept it. They're saying the wrong thing, so don't listen to them. Oh? The hardest thing to understand was gifts. Wait, weren't we talking about an alliance? Why does the conversation keep revolving around gifts? And each tribe was saying something different. So I asked Manteo, should we be hostile to the Powhatan tribe? Then you must reject the gifts they send. If they sent gifts, doesn't that mean they've submitted? Shouldn't we accept the gifts then?
No.
Then we would have to return the gifts several times over. What? That's how it was. I couldn't understand. Manteo. So I asked Manteo separately during a meal. What's going on here? Why is everyone saying different things? Those gathered at the meal were the so-called apostles. A little distance away, Bacon and Harriet were debating some mathematical topic. Just looking at those gathered here, you could tell who was leading this colony. Those who have maintained connections with me for the longest time. The 30 people from Croatan, Manteo's tribe members, and the Spanish sailors. They are the leaders of this settlement. In addition, a few brains brought from England assist my rule. Anyway, Manteo, who somehow became the representative of the native world, glanced around before turning to me and saying, as I said earlier, whether it's the Powhatan tribe or others, if you are hostile to natives, you should not exchange gifts. I nodded roughly at Manteo's words. Then Manteo continued, if they first send a lavish gift, you must either firmly reject it, or if you accept it, you must repay it several times over. As the conversation between Manteo and me began, others also quietly turned their ears toward us. Seeing that I still had a puzzled expression, Manteo tilted his head. You still don't understand the concept of gifts among us. Yes, honestly, it's difficult. You call it a gift, but if they sent something first, isn't it a tribute of surrender? Shouldn't we just accept it?
No.
Then the enraged Powhatan tribe will wage war against us. What? Even after receiving the gift? They wage war because the gift was received. No, this is... Manteo, hearing my words, seemed to be struggling with where to begin explaining, then snapped his fingers. Ah, then Mr. Nemo still doesn't understand why you are our great chief. What? Isn't it because I'm the wealthiest?
No.
It's because you sent gifts to others. What? I briefly traced my memories. I had excess Shine Muscat grapes, so I bartered with Mantio. Mantio distributed the Shine Muscat he received from us to surrounding tribes, and in return gave us various food and luxury items he received. I thought that was the end of it, but later Oidoton started revering me, saying I was the wealthiest person, the great chief, and so on. So I thought that's how it happened.
No.
Isn't that right? The barter part is wrong. We never bartered. What? Think about it. Is it really barter to send jewels, food, and fur pelts for one bunch of grapes? Were the tribes around Pamlico sound crazy about grapes? Mantio said, a gift, that is, in the words of Mr. Nemo and Europeans, is a kind of display. It's also a show of friendliness. But before that, it's a display. It was something I'd never heard before. Mantio continued his explanation. Why do people worship the sun? Because the sun continuously gifts them with light. So people return offerings to the sun, but it still can't compare to the power and vitality the sun brings. That's how powerful the sun is. That's why people worship the sun. Did people barter offerings for sunlight here? No. Isn't it repaying the gift of sunlight that the sun has given? Do you understand? I think I'm starting to. Giving a gift is a display of, I am this wealthy, and therefore a friendly gesture saying, enter my sphere of influence. Rejecting it means you're hostile to the other party. It means you don't respect their power. And accepting it? It means you respect the other party's power. So we must return gifts to show our power too. If we are wealthier than the other party and can return something greater than what they gave, then they must acknowledge our power. But if we are poorer than the other party and can only return relatively modest gifts, we're acknowledging their power. When does the gift exchange end? It never ends. It just continues forever, as long as we are alive. Giving a gift, before expressing friendliness to the other party, is displaying one's wealth and power. Just as I gave Shine Muscat to Mantio's tribe. It was a precious fruit that couldn't be obtained anywhere else. I showed Mantio my power. Mantio then distributed that to surrounding tribes, and the surrounding tribes returned fur, jewels, and food to me, because it was their obligation. But they were all less precious than Shine Muscat. They probably couldn't find anything more precious. Therefore, they acknowledged my superiority, and I became their great chief. Without my knowledge. Now I think I roughly understand. Chapter 60. Gift Economy. 2. In that sense, your European kings are strange. How can a leader who receives gifts from those they lead be respected? Shouldn't the one who gives be respected? And shouldn't the one who gives lead? But offering gifts means submission, doesn't it? Why is that submission, Mrs. Dare? It's generosity and an expression of power. Conversely, Mantio couldn't understand our way of life. To Mantio, a leader is the wealthiest person. And the wealthiest person is the one who gives the most. Because they give the most, they receive the most respect and gain leadership. To us, a leader is the strongest person. Because they are strong, they dominate and protect all others around them. And in return for protection, they receive numerous treasures from their subjects and gain ruling power. Somehow, it's completely different. What am I? I suddenly look at the rest of the apostles and Mantio who have now started arguing. I see them glancing at me. Ah, I am both. I am the strongest. Therefore, I protected them from poverty and disease and gained their loyalty in return. I am simultaneously the wealthiest. Because I gave them so many things, I gained their loyalty in return. The tax issue was the same. It's a natural thing for Europeans. No sane person in this world says, so what are you going to give back? When gangsters collect protection money. Therefore, it's natural for them that the government takes taxes and kings or nobles take taxes. But not for the natives. A leader is naturally someone who gives something. Since it's natural to return what you've received as a gift, they would gift labor and resources back to him. But taking something one-sidedly is an absurd act of robbery. Like the sun. The sun continues to shine light and warmth on them. but doesn't expect anything greater in return. So, are you saying natives can't accept an organized government? Hewitt said with a sigh. That's nonsense, Manteo. We must somehow teach them about taxes and obedience to the government, and make them part of this settlement. That's correct. I nodded, and then Manteo spoke again. Then what about the other natives? Would they look favorably upon an entity that unilaterally extorts something from its subjects? Don't they all have to accept it someday? Will you be satisfied with just over 10,000 people? Manteo's words were also right. I had no choice but to nod again. Someone once said that pre-modern states and gangsters are no different. Just as armed gangsters collect protection money and claim they maintain order in the area, ordinary states do the same. To the natives, the European so-called state would look like gangsters. As it did in actual history, they suddenly appeared, demanded offerings and loyalty, and when people didn't listen, they drove them all out and killed them. That was the conclusion drawn by the so-called state. As Hewitt and Manteo continued to argue, I rolled some peas on my plate with a spoon a few times and reached a conclusion. Manteo's words are correct. Even to incorporate other natives, we shouldn't do that. What? Our government will decide not to collect taxes. Hewitt's eyes widen. Others also look at me with wide eyes. However, I nodded. The government can receive gifts equal to what it has given. That will substitute for taxes. At first glance, it seemed like just wordplay, but it was the wordplay needed at this moment. With my words, the argument among the apostles was settled. And once the argument among the apostles was settled, the argument in the meeting that continued the next day was also settled. There are no taxes. The government does not extort. It only receives gifts in return. Nothing would change immediately, because I will continue to plow their fields and distribute land to them. In return, they will offer me taxes in the name of gifts. There wasn't much difference. But the natives quickly understood and all agreed to the matter. So we moved on to the next issue. We all felt something strange. A country without taxes, it sounds like wordplay, but isn't it strange? Well, nothing will change right away. Equals. A child arrived at Chesapeake Bay starving. His tribe's people scattered due to famine. Since the child had no parents, he followed others around until he lost his way. The child became a person alone in this world. Wandering for days and nights with nothing, the child walked east without direction, because he had heard rumors before. There is a tribe with a very wealthy great chief there, so one wouldn't starve. If only one could get there, there would be no worries about food. Believing only those words, the boy walked to Chesapeake Bay. Moving with his emaciated body, he had no strength. The boy staggered and collapsed. Hey, there's a boy here. Q quickly bring water and porridge first. The boy was, so to speak, a vagrant. In Spain, the boy would have wandered as a despised beggar for his entire life, sustaining himself through begging. Vagrants are not the state's concern, but they are worthy of pity. In England, the boy would have been caught by soldiers and then locked up in some workshop, living a life of backbreaking labor. Because an idle vagrant who can work is a loss to the state. What's your name? Slowly, don't strain yourself. Just tell me your age, name, and hometown. Ugh. But this was the Virginia settlement, a place where a giving government exists, not an extorting one. The child soon received food and a place to sleep as a gift, and soon after regaining consciousness, the child hurriedly picked tree fruits and gifted them back to Eleanor, who had gifted him with food and shelter. Then Eleanor smiled, ate those tree fruits expressing gratitude, and gifted the boy land and seeds. The boy diligently plowed the land and planted the seeds. Finally, after a few months, when fruits formed, the boy gifted the fruits to Eleanor, and Eleanor stroked the boy's head and said, "Wait. He will come to you soon." The boy, puzzled, returned home, and a few days later, hearing a strange roar, he went outside to see a bizarre sight. A beast made of iron was plowing the fields of the boys and neighbors anew. It seemed there would be no need for additional work. And in front of the boy's hut was a basket. Opening the basket, it was filled with cheese, various foods, and household items. "Ah! Are you awake?" The boy suddenly looked up at the man who was driving the iron beast in front of his house. The sun shone behind him. "I am Nemo. Welcome to Virginia." The boy realized he had received a gift from this man that would be insufficient even if he gave everything in his life in return, and soon followed others with grown hair to help cut down trees. Now the boy was a Virginian. Nothing seemed to have changed immediately. Slowly, everything changed. People didn't follow Virginia's government because there was a terrifying boss. They were by its side because Virginia's government, like the sun, endlessly gave. They did not fear their government. Without knowing it themselves, they loved their government, just as they loved their angel.